missed one. For some reason, mine knocked me off today, too.
You keeping busy? Doing fine. Still around.
Loading very fast.
Well, my daughter stayed in Vancouver for the summer. Yeah, it's the best time of year.
I did.
Sun is around.
All right. I see that it's 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting of the Albany Planning and Zoning Commission to order for July 9th. Please, as the first thing, join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Have the roll call, please.
Yes, Commissioner Arkin,
Here?
Commissioner Eisenman,
Here.
Commissioner Moss,
Here.
Commissioner Pilch,
Here.
Chair Donaldson.
Here. Okay. The next item on
Tags are missing.
signs wrong there.
They're not.
That's something that needs to be corrected now.
I can go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Oh.
It's not important to me.
Probably all right.
Just call me.
So we can get along without signs tonight, I
If
think.
you have a moment,
Okay.
it might be good for the public to.
I suppose. Okay. All right. Well, we'll move forward then with the consent calendar. We have a number of items on the consent calendar tonight, including design review for a small addition at 822 San Carlos, and design review for another project on San Carlos at 839, same block. And then we have the parking exception and design review for a second-story addition at 941 Jackson. The only thing that has been continued to another date. That hearing won't occur tonight. And then we have Planning Commission minutes from 3 meetings, November 20th, 2013, January 22nd, 2014, and February 12th, 2014. Any member of the commission and any member of the public can pull any of these items from the consent calendar, and we will discuss them individually after a single motion on the consent calendar. Is there anyone who'd like to pull any of the items from the consent calendar? Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to discuss any of these projects? Okay, I see no one. No, 822 and 829 San Carlos, 839 San Carlos, and then the other one is 941 Jackson. If you're not here for any of those, okay. I will accept the motion on the consent calendar then.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of our consent calendar, noting that I was absent on February 22nd.
All right,
I'll second that.
okay.
Shall we amend to remove the 2 items on which your Commissioner Eisenman is recused?
And I was also absent from one of the meetings myself, January 22nd.
I'm not recused from any item that I know of.
Oh,
Okay,
Actually, you're recused on both San Carlos applications.
Really? I apologize.
okay,
Oh, okay, okay.
okay, so it's complicated.
Then,
We can just note that as part of the motion.
Let's note that in the minutes.
Staff will
All
make the
right.
necessary amendments
All right.
to,
Okay,
thank you, Nick.
so let's vote on the consent calendar, and then for the secretary's benefit, let's note where we're abstaining or where we're recusing ourselves. All right, so we've had a motion and a second for this consent calendar. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed? Opposed. Now, David, you have an abstention?
The item 4F,
Okay.
February 12th minutes, I was absent.
All right, and Stacy? You have
The item A and item B.
item A and item B. She's recused because your offices are within 500 feet, I think.
I missed that. Thank you for
And
catching it.
then I'm abstaining from January 22nd. Any other modifications to the motion? All right. Okay. So the consent calendar has been approved. If you're here for 839 San Carlos or 822 San Carlos, this means that your project has been approved. There won't be any further discussion. You're done. So you're all set. There is a 14-day appeal period on all of these items, and it could be appealed, probably not, but it could happen. You're free now to talk with the building department, planning department about getting the rest of your permits and moving forward with your projects. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. The next item on our agenda is public comment. Anyone who'd like to address if you have a speaker card on a particular project tonight, you can bring it in and bring it over to Ann at any time. And the public comment period we have on our agenda now is for anyone to address the commission on any issue that's not on the agenda. So if you're not on the agenda tonight and you would like to discuss anything with the Planning and Zoning Commission, this is your opportunity. Okay? All right, I see no one coming forward. All right, so we'll move on to our regular business. And the first item is planning application 14039, which is design review for a second-story addition at 919 Ordway. And do we have a staff report?
We do have a staff report, although I don't see the homeowner or the project architect in the audience. So we might...
Applicant is not here. Maybe we should skip this item then?
We could skip this and go to item B, where the applicant is present,
Okay, we'll see if...
and come back to 919. Yeah, we have to wait for the applicant to be here before holding the hearing and presenting the application. So hopefully they will arrive fairly soon, and then once they do, we will go back to that.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll take that out of order. No. All right. Are you walking in for 919 Ordway? Okay, we're just starting your item. In fact, you weren't here, so we were going to pass you up. Are you the applicant or the owner? Do you have other people coming, architect? He will be arriving soon. All right.
I don't know if we can, Jason's always late. He was late
Okay.
last time.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're going to do another item. We're going to work on another project first, and I'm sorry, but you'll have to wait. And I apologize to you for making you wait. We will move on to our next item, and we'll come back to 919 Ordway then.
So the next item I am also recused on.
Okay, Stacy is recused on this one, 833 Pomona.
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
The next item is planning application 14038, which is design review, a conditional use permit, and a parking exception for 833 Pomona. Ann, why don't you do a staff report for us?
Good evening. Before you tonight is a request for design review, a conditional use permit, and parking exception for an addition at 833 Pomona. The subject lot is 2,500 square feet and contains a 729 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. The applicant is proposing to add 778 square feet of new living area. This includes a partial first-floor addition that will accommodate an expanded bedroom and stairway, which will lead to the second-story master suite. The home will increase from 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom to 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and will be 1,417 square feet in area, with a maximum height of 23 feet 1 inch. The existing exterior appearance is a Spanish revival. The applicant is proposing to make that more modern, which I'll get to in a little bit. A conditional use permit is required to extend the wall vertically on the north side. Currently, it is 6 inches off the property line. The applicant is proposing proposing to extend that vertically. And the parking exception is required to allow one space for the project and to also locate it in the front yard setback. As I mentioned, the existing home is Spanish Revival. And so on the screen, you have, this is the existing appearance. Below it is the proposed appearance with horizontal cedar siding, fairly large windows. It's going to be a pretty dramatic change to a very modern appearance. There's a second-story front porch, which is located here, that will be accessible from the master suite. The addition is proposed to be set back 47 feet from the existing building face. Pursuant to Section 2024-050B2A of the Municipal Code, the Commission may approve a floor area ratio of up to 0.6 if you can support the application request. Being that it's a 2,500 square foot lot, this allows for a maximum building area of 1,500 square feet. They are just under that, 1,471 square feet, which puts them in at 0.59 FAR. As part of the project, they're also partially removing a rear yard shed to accommodate the max floor area ratio for the site. The existing configuration of the driveway is 6 feet, 6 3/4 inches, and this is from the existing chimney to a planter. And on the dais, and I also emailed this to you, there's a photograph of the driveway to give you a visual of what that looks like. Also, the applicant had provided a parking exhibit to show the conditions of the driveway being fairly narrow, and also provided a panorama shot. So this is one of 5 2,500 square foot lots that are all adjacent to one another on Pomona, all roughly about 6 inches off the property line on the north side. One of these homes has been expanded. This home the home most north has actually been expanded. That's 1,365 square feet. The other homes have largely retained similar, their same original footprint. And with that, that concludes the staff report. The applicant is here this evening. Answer any questions you might have.
Okay. Any questions for staff? No. No. Okay. I think I'll ask it later, so, okay. So now if the applicant's present or the applicant's representative architect would like to come forward and maybe address the commission a little bit about what you're doing here and about the decisions we need to make, why you're asking for these approvals. Mm-hmm.
So, hi, my name is Patrick Flynn. My family and I purchased a home about 3.5 years ago, and we've developed a very strong community along our block of Pomona Avenue. We're very committed to our neighborhood, and we're interested to expand our home so we can stay for many more years to come. Since having our third child last summer, it quickly became apparent that 729 square feet was actually quite tight for a family of our size, and it was time to consider an addition. With the understanding that enlarging homes on a 2,500 square foot lot has its challenges, as we developed our project proposal, we took great care to be attentive to the goals laid forth in Albany's residential design guidelines, as well as being cognizant of the potential impacts on our neighbors. We were mindful, as we were laying out the home, to take into consideration the daily lives of our neighbors, both within their homes and as they walk along the block. We've shared our plans with many of our neighbors closest to our property, particularly our neighbors most directly affected to the north and south. And as you see in one of the documents included in your application, we have their support. Early in the process, I had multiple conversations with staff to ensure that our proposed project was within allowable limits of the code, and took care to understand that there'd be certain issues that require the use of exceptions that are allowed within the code due to the size of our lot. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and thank you for your consideration.
Okay. Any questions of the applicant this time? We may have some as we move forward, and we'll bring you back. Oh, Nick, go
Just
ahead.
one, so the footprint is remaining the same, is that correct?
No, we are expanding the home to the south.
To the south, to the rear of the property?
No, to the side yard of the property.
Side yard, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? No. All right, so I'd like to open a public hearing on this. Is there anyone who'd like to address the commission on 833 Pomona?
I do have
a
one speaker card.
Okay,
Isabella Conti.
okay. Please come forward.
Thank you for your time and attention. I'm the owner of the property directly to the south
Okay.
of these people.
Okay.
And last night is the first time that I heard about the project. I did receive a card from the city, but I was on vacation. I just returned, and going through the mail, I found the card. So apparently, they did obtain the consent of the tenant, but certainly nobody ever tried to contact me. So I was very much
Okay,
taken
so
aback.
you're the owner of the building next door, and you've rented it out. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
I used to live there and knew the people, the nice lady next door who lived in their house, the house that they now own. I had zero time to prepare for this. I came here this afternoon to look at the plans, and I was a little dismayed to see that basically the driveway, which separates the two buildings, and it's the only really division between the two buildings because my house sits at the property line. So they will be now decreasing that driveway, actually taking the driveway away, and the two houses will be 3 feet apart. Okay, so you could actually exchange dinner dishes across the window. Secondly, because they're going straight up, and they're going straight up the entire length, they will be taking significant air and light away. But I know there's nothing I can do about that. However, two considerations. I do want to raise it because in case we go to court later on, I know I have to raise these issues now. Otherwise, I cannot dispute your decision. So there is an issue of really having a it is over 1,500 square feet home next to a 570 square feet home that will be towering over it, basically forcing me at one point to build a second story if I want to maintain the value of the house. Otherwise, this house is going to be completely overtaken. But aside from that, there is a major issue about parking because we live about half a block. These houses are located half a block of Solano. There is a church. There are several businesses. And I know because I lived in that house, the parking expands, the parking needs from Solano and the businesses expand to that area. And so
Go ahead.
I'm,
I'll let you
and so
finish.
I am concerned that it will, the parking for the residents is going to be severely diminished, not to speak about the fact that out of the window from the living room, we'll now be seeing a car instead of the front yard.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
You never saw the wooden story poles that are up?
No, I saw it this morning when
You saw them today when you were alerted
Yes.
to it? Okay.
And
Okay.
I was really
Yeah.
taken aback. And
And-
again, it's nobody's fault in the
Yeah.
sense that you sent the notice,
I
but
understand. I understand.
I wasn't there.
And from our looking at the plans, that the second-story addition wouldn't cover the entire length of the house. The second-story addition is set back some distance from the front of the house.
Yes,
so.
which means that we'll be taking light and air away from the backyard.
From the back
And
of-
if
Correct.
my neighbor to the south should decide to go up, this will look like a prison yard
Okay.
in between. And because of the expansion, again, instead of the 7.5 to 8.2 8.29 or something, distance between the two buildings will now be 3 feet apart.
Okay,
So
I
that's,
understand you. I understand your comments. Thank you very much.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate your help.
All right, is there anyone else who would like to address the commission? We do have another speaker.
Yes.
Okay, Ann?
Bernard Knapp.
Okay. Hi. Mm-hmm.
I'm Bernard Knapp. I live at 825 Pomona, which is about 4 doors down from Patrick and Birgit's house. And I just want to say that I have I can see the structure from my backyard. I have no problems whatsoever with this proposed improvement. And I did want to say that there are two things I'd like to say. One thing that I've harped on before at some city proceedings, which is that I really do feel that the off-street parking restrictions and the general policy in favor of preserving the appearance of two-story pop-ups, preserving the appearance of one-story houses, even though people are doing pop-ups, this is a more general comment, is misguided and leads to bad design decisions and leads to kind of like bizarre choices. So just in general, I don't like that. In favor of this particular proposal, I would like to say, we need more families in Albany. We need families like this one. Taking a 700 or 800 square foot house or a 900 square foot house and turning it into something a family can actually live in is a good thing, not a bad thing. And so I support this kind of improvement in general. So, any questions?
I don't think so, but I will make a comment. This commission always struggles with parking and parking issues. By a vote of the people, we are required to provide 2 off-street parking places for people. We can make exceptions to that. And not too many weeks ago, your block was in here complaining vigorously about the Jazzercise project at the corner. And so I recognize that your block has a difficult parking situation, or it's certainly perceived that way. Mm-hmm. No.
Well, there's parking, there's parking. I mean, I think
It's always difficult. Mm-hmm.
You know, I personally was not complaining about the Jazzercise parking. I mean, I recognize that people have a right to park on the streets. I think there are other approaches that could be taken to on-street parking, such as some of the proposals that have been made from time to time for resident parking permits and that kind of thing. In general, my experience, or at least my observation, has been that in many communities around the country, municipalities are going towards reducing off-street parking in order to, encourage people to walk and the rest of that kind of thing. I'm in favor of a lot of other things like that that you undoubtedly don't have time to hear about this evening.
We're looking at that too. We're looking at those questions ourselves.
Well,
To change it, it would probably require a vote of the people.
Well, the people are ready to vote. So anyway, thank you very much, and I hope that you'll approve this proposal for Patrick and Bree. Thank you.
Thank you. Is we any other speakers?
Yes, Ben Weinstein.
So, is that okay? I live at the house at 829 Pomona, which is a two-story house, and I feel that the parking situation. I know that there was a petition. I think that maybe the parking situation at the end of the block, right next to Solano, is quite different because I have never had trouble finding parking. This particular day, there's actually no cars on the street at all. And I don't think that I've ever had to go, looked more than 2 houses down for off-street parking. So I would not characterize parking as an issue at all, at least, once you're away from Solano. And maybe the situation is different if you're right at Solano. The other thing is, in terms of house value, I think that in general, a larger house actually will increase house value. A larger house will have greater value and provide better comps for the houses around them. And I think that providing houses where families can live in Albany is a good goal, and I hope that's a goal that you guys have. The the school system and the families keep property values high, and I think you want to encourage those things in this community. And so I hope you vote in favor of this. Yeah. Oh, if you have any comments. I don't know. Yeah, okay.
That's fine. Thank you. Are there any other speaker cards? Anyone like to address the commission project? See no one. I will close the public hearing then and bring it back to the commission for discussion, hopefully action. Who'd like to start? Nick?
Well, I'm not sure I want to start, but I just wanted to see if maybe Commissioner Arkren or someone else wanted to speak to the preserving the appearance of a single-story home with pop-ups, because as I noted that in the previous meeting I asked about that, and I believe the response was that actually that is not the commission's usual direction to people who want to do additions, that we don't necessarily encourage that.
Yeah, there was a previous set of design guidelines which encouraged what Phil and I like to call the old woman in the shoe look, which is a two-story addition in back with one story toward the street. Our current design guidelines, which were revised 3-4 years ago, no longer state that, that multiple forms of additions can be considered. I think it's a pattern that persists in our community. It's also one that reflects that it's often easier to build on the rear and put a second story above it. So I think it persists for economic reasons. Or,
Thanks.
There may be a reason why someone prefers it.
In fact, it's not something we're discouraging. It's just that we're not saying that's
We're
the
not
only way to do it,
We're
right?
not actively encouraging it or saying it's the only way. That's correct.
All right. Anyone like to start the discussion of how to proceed on this?
Questions for staff. You started to talk about the rear shed. I didn't catch all of that. That's staying as it is?
That's going to be partially demolished. That's going to be reduced by about 42 square feet to 54 square feet.
Because it's not reflected on the drawings.
It should be.
Yeah.
A10.
Right, they're the same dimensions on the
Yeah,
sheet.
that's-
Yeah,
you're
sheet
right.
A1.0.
Yeah. The,
They show the existing and the proposed, and on the proposed site plan at the top of the page, it notes reduced size of shed.
but it's not drawn that way. So you reduced it to get you down below the FAR?
Yeah,
So it has been, so it will be, it has been reduced
Yeah,
on the,
it's-
on the
it's-
on the revised
it's
plans,
noted on the
final
site plan
plans. Okay,
detail.
Okay. All right. Good catch, Phil.
Yeah. This only requires the exception for the front yard, not a reduction in parking.
Well, it's a bit of both. It's a reduction for one off-street parking space, and then the exception to allow it in the front yard setback.
Okay, because I didn't see the reduction in the staff report. That's,
Well, I'm not sure that the existing space is a legal space. I mean, it's 7.7 feet 3 inches wide or less, the best I can tell.
I think that's right. That's the real question here,
Yeah.
is does this property currently only have one off-street
space.
parking space?
Yeah. That's the way I look at it, yeah. The way I saw it. Okay. Anyone like to start a discussion about the general design regarding the design review and the conditional use permit for the extending the wall? Then we can deal with parking.
well, I promised that I was going to the rest of my term, I was going to be nice, but I got to tell you, your architect's not here, is he?
He is the architect.
You are the architect.
He's the applicant and the architect.
Okay, so you're a designer or the architect? So you're not an architect? In most jurisdictions, and I do a lot of these presentations, I would be hesitant to present the quality of drawings you did here today. It doesn't sell the project. There's not even a north arrow on the project. Wow, okay. That's pretty obscure. And even the drafting or the quality of the drafting doesn't sell this project. I have a hard time telling. For instance, your wood rail, that's a big part of the front facade. It's, it calls out cedar siding, so it's just a solid rail. There's no gaps. Okay. I hope somebody wins soon, because we're trying to approve this, and I can't. See, the unfortunate thing is sometimes we approve stuff with questions, and all of a sudden when it gets built, there's even bigger questions of why it was allowed to be built that way.
Why don't you come with the microphone so because we need to record this and all that, and then
Yeah, I'm
Phil
just-
can ask questions about the plans and maybe get some answers, so it'd be good.
So the horizontal, you got a cedar guardrail and a cedar siding rail on this,
Yes.
without any idea how it's going to be built.
It's pretty, no, it's a rain screen system. The horizontal siding on the bump out on the second floor effectively flies by and creates the guardrail. So it creates a continuous plane at about 42 inches.
Okay. How about, and this is your window trim?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. I could tell you. Gotta sell the project. Okay.
I suppose the difficulty with some of the drawings is that there's not a lot of detail proposed necessarily.
Right.
It's more modern in appearance, so it necessitates fewer lines.
Okay, and then some shadows would have helped giving us depth and
Understood.
three-dimensional and line weights and stuff like that. I mean, you've got something I can't quite, I guess, I don't know. Over the front door, there looks like there's some lines.
The front door is recessed, so that the interior of that recess is lined with cedar. It's shown in the plan. We've recessed the front door to shadow it.
Okay, so oh, I see what you're doing.
We looked at a number of configurations with an awning on the front or that sort of thing.
Just here. You'll see this is how it printed out. That's how it printed. That's unfortunate. Yeah, that's my thing. You're not selling the project. So, and that's
not how, I mean, even there, it presents differently, but even that's not necessarily representative of how it was drawn. It seems like a poor reproduction.
biggest thing is, I mean, again, I'm not trying to be mean here. What I'm trying to do is give you.
Oh, but sir, I didn't print the drawings.
That, I know, but this is your project, this is your baby. Come up here and sell it.
Okay.
With your graphics. Don't leave any questions, because I can tell you that I can sell an ugly house with good graphics. But
Well, then maybe
graphics
we've got something going for myself.
graphics is everything. When you're coming from a design review board.
I understand.
Okay, so we've got some cedars, painted, stained,
It's a stain cedar, sir.
stained, clear stain,
It's a light gray stain.
light gray stain.
Yes, sir.
Great, okay.
My understanding was that the material sample board was required upon submittal of the building permit.
That is true, but we like to see what's happening too. Especially on a minimalist design. Okay, well, that's really all I have. I mean, I just had some questions about some of the materials. No, that's it for me. For now, those are my questions.
Okay.
I had, as long as you're up here, I just had a question about the window specifications. So they're aluminum windows with a black black finish?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then
They're a clad window. They're a solid wood clad window, aluminum clad.
oh, they're wood windows with aluminum clad, black aluminum clad exterior and
They're noted as Sierra Pacific.
sorry?
They're noted as Sierra Pacific, who's the manufacturer.
Oh, okay, very good. And interior is wood.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, sorry, I'm just walking up and down your block, looking at patterns.
Come back to reality.
Architecturally, I find this to be a rather bold proposal. But as we have often said, we don't have a particular style of architecture here in Albany. We welcome all styles as long as they're, well done. And especially as we approach the maximum floor area ratio, we like to see high quality design. And you're taking a very pure and modern aesthetic, and I think that's a fine approach, especially on a small house like this. So architecturally, I'm in support of the application. We're about to have a discussion of parking, and that's going to possibly impact some of that. So I'll just say that.
Can I speak to the parking issue? I think it's worth noting that in the image on the screen behind me, there's 7 vehicles that are all parked within the front yard setback. Very specifically, there's 5 lots in a row that are all 2,500 square foot lots, and 4 of those homes are represented in the photograph, all of whom have one vehicle parked in the front yard setback. The other homeowner happened to not be home at the time when the photo was taken. She parks in the front yard. When looking at the massing of the house, I approached it from a number of different directions. I looked at keeping the existing driveway even though it didn't conform. Mm-hmm. And effectively what that does, currently what we have now is a dining room table that's about 2 feet by 4 feet and is pushed up against the wall. There's a high chair on either end and 2 chairs that we pull the table apart, away from the wall when we want to have a family dinner. That 16-foot wide house is actually quite difficult to achieve a proportion of a room that allows you to have a dining room and a kitchen side by side. So if we were to alter, I looked at a proposal where we effectively removed what is now the second bedroom and placed a dining room there, or reconfigured the first floor in a way that there was a dining room there. What that does is forces us to push the second bedroom, the massing of the second bedroom, to the second floor. And that then creates a building that's 23, 24 feet tall, 16 feet wide, and roughly has the appearance of a cereal box. Its mass is pushed much more towards the street, and it's a very kind of awkward proportion. I looked at a proposal where we accommodated a garage at the front, and frankly, it was economically infeasible for us. It also resulted in a home that was its footprint and the mass was larger because we're allowed to take an FAR exception for the garage space. We were able to make the house technically bigger, and it felt bigger, and so we abandoned that direction. So what I feel proposed before you is a safe negotiation between those two directions. It presents a large front porch to the front street. It maintains the existing pattern of parking. It kind of it permits it, even though that's kind of the existing pattern.
Okay, thanks.
That's good. That's great. Thank you. Who wants to go on? If neither of you are eager to, Nick, Phil?
As far as design goes, I maybe echo Phil's concern that there aren't quite enough details here for me to visualize the design, but that might be just because of my unfamiliarity with modern architecture. When it's a design that's more something that's echoed more in Albany, like a Craftsman or et cetera, then it's easier to visualize what the drawings represent. I'll leave it to the architects to further comment on the design. But if they're good with it, I'm good with it. But I'd always like to see more details.
All right. I guess I'll go ahead, make a few comments. Yeah, I've actually voted against a house on Spokane and near my own block a couple of years ago because it was a modern house going into a row of McGregor's, and I just thought that we almost had a little historic district there. It was the main reason for that. In the end, I voted no. The house was built, however, it was approved, and I think it's actually came out well. It's a handsome house. I still think it's inappropriate in that group of neighbors, but I am not necessarily opposed to the modernistic kind of style, and I kind of like this design. I think that the wood, the combination of the wood and the stucco, as best I understand it, will be good. I think that's removing the chimney will very much change the style of the house, and changing the front porch, and I think it will have a nice front. So I'm supportive of the design. No one's talked about the conditional use permit you need for extending that north wall. I think it is. And I'm not opposed to that. I would support that in this instance. I think the other houses in that row, there are 3 or 4 of them in that row that are all kind of built up against their north property line. We dealt with that recently on a problem on a project on probably on Talbot, I think it was, and went both ways on it and ended up saying, let's let the house stay against that north property line because it keeps the pattern of the block. I think so. I support that. I think the parking, I will probably have a big discussion about that. I think it is a tough issue on this one. We really struggled with it at our last meeting on another project. My inclination is that existing driveway is actually so narrow it's really not a driveway. At 7.3, if I understand the dimensions correctly and read the drawing correctly, or read the staff report says 7.3, I think is the width that you have now, and that's below our minimum width for a parking space. So even though it's paved, it might be a great motorcycle parking space, but I don't think it's a legal car space, and I would probably, in this instance, support the parking exception. But others may have other comments on that. Those are my thoughts. Bill, I know you're still looking closely at the plans and probably have a number of other comments to make. So,
I think you're off to a good start. I think with just some minor tweaks, you're going to have something that you can be very proud of. I know that you're looking kind of at a modern, but that can mean many things. Mid-century modern, Nitro versus Schindler versus Marcel Bauer. There's all kinds of different mid-centuries. And I would have liked to see you take a little bit more of that idea and run with it. For instance, that mass that you have off the entry, you could have easily put an eyebrow across there over that and really influenced the design greatly. You could have come across, because you have a recess, I think that's, or a pop-out on the second floor, which is the best part of this design, but you kind of didn't do much on the first floor to address a cohesive design.
We're interested in kind of modulating the front facade, but we're limited by the fact that, one, the existing entrance on the street left of the house, and we can't horizontally extend a non-conforming wall. So we were limited to push that, that's why the door was pushed in. We also looked at a couple of eyebrow configurations for awnings over the door, and they always felt as though
It's not the front door that I'm talking about. You're fine with the front door. I mean, the door is going to make a big influence on what this design, the slab door, similar to mid-century, some other aspect of a frosted glass, all glass door, something, and that's the kind of details I was looking for, is more of what you're thinking here. For instance, it would be interesting you have the cedar siding rail on top, where normally you would see either some type of metal or wire rail, which that rail is probably one of the most important aspects of the design, because everything else is plain except for that rail. So I think whatever that design is really going to influence the overall design greatly and how you see this house. And so that's where I was kind of going with, I think. It's over the window. I was just looking up next to the front door, where it goes up and just stops, and you've got one big slab. That's fine. Again, if you had kind of tones or something that offset or brought out that front and sent the other one back, I know it's back quite a ways already, but that a very clean edge, but there's never really a clean edge. When you just go straight up, you've got to have a drip cap and flashing and stuff, and so. The first floor massing. Like I said, the second floor, I'm fine.
Yeah, I think
Here.
we're losing the
Just-
recording again.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just,
So-
you can look at,
Yeah.
you can look at this, and you can read my thoughts from there. And why I was saying that with the shadows added, it makes a huge difference of understanding the massing. But then you take that front door mass, and you bring across an eyebrow that includes the massing, so it's kind of an L shape or a L laying on its edge. Then that's going to break up that whole facade and really make it a modern, or mid-century modern look.
Okay.
Now, if you just want to strip down, minimalist type house, that's fine too. You don't have to do that. But, that's the kind of thinking that I wanted to see from you was, and that's where it took a little while to understand the massing. And I agree. I think that the change of materials is wonderful. I think that that's fine. I just think that that rail is really going to make that whole house. Unfortunately, that is going to be the whole facade if you keep a minimalist front.
Right. Okay.
So accent that aspect of the design.
Okay.
Okay.
I
And
mean, that said, parking.
parking.
I understand your comments. I understand the situation. And in this case, I'd be willing to probably give you an exception for that because it's a 25-foot wide lot.
Yeah.
Normally, if it's bigger than a 25-foot wide lot, I hesitate. But if it was bigger than a 25-foot wide lot, you probably would have had a wider driveway. And so I think that as much as I don't like giving exceptions, I think in this case it's probably warranted, and we have many times given exceptions for 25-foot wide lots. That said, sometimes the trade-off is a better design, for lack of a better term, a more thought-out, more sophisticated, more in line with some of our design review manual. So. But as far as the parking, I think I can live with the exception because of the narrowness of these lots.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Nick hasn't.
Nick?
So in terms of parking, let me just understand that what we're looking at is whether or not there's two existing off-street parking places, and it seems like the feeling is that there aren't because of the narrow driveway, that there's really only one in the front yard setback. So but a reduction, we're granting both a reduction and an exception for the front yard setback. And so I think in this case that both of those are applicable, and both those, I would be fine with those as well.
If I could just add my thoughts on that, they're not changing the parking situation there. So that, I think, is a big improvement to some of the applicants that come in and want to
Yeah,
not, or,
Yeah.
create the problem. This
create
one
the problem, yeah.
already has the problem,
Yeah,
and we can't fix it.
yeah, well, he is proposing to expand that front room into what's part of what looks like a driveway, but but I think that it's so narrow there that it really isn't a usable parking space, at least maybe you could, part of it in front of by the chimney, you could squeeze a car in there, but by our standards, it isn't wide enough. Yeah. So, are there any other thoughts on it? I guess I would either accept the motion to approve it with some conditions that Phil has talked about, or continue it and have it come back.
I'm going to suggest that Phil maybe make a motion.
That's what I was thinking.
Based on the concerns.
Do you
he
think about
outlined.
what you want to do?
No, I'm willing to move this forward and let the final details be worked out with staff. I
Okay.
think staff has heard what we've had to
Okay.
say.
Okay.
I think, trust me, I understand that, you put something in front of design review, and designs are always changing up to the minute you build them. So in the case of Albany, we're willing to accept that if you work with staff. If the change becomes major, then it comes back to us. But in most cases, minor tweaks happen during construction, or minor tweaks happen when you're finalizing the drawings. They're fine. That said,
Phil, before you make any specific motion, I did want to address the conditional use permit for the extension
Yes.
of a non-conforming side yard setback. And I just want to note to everyone that those are, that's in our ordinance for exactly this type of situation.
Yeah.
Several houses were built, in this case, a number in a row with a reduced side yard. And it allows one to extend vertically only for the length of the existing wall. So that's what's being approved here.
right,
I might add a comment as well to the speaker who was concerned about the side yard, the narrow side yard. It is true that if this moves forward and we approve it, that the side yard that is there now will be narrowed, but it'll still be within our side yard requirements. It'll still conform with our standard side yard requirements that would be applicable to this lot. In fact, I think you'd have a few inches wider than what we.
And we stepped
than
it
what's
back actually
required,
at the
yeah.
front, so that even at the front of the house, it appeared less
Yeah.
close.
All right, Phil?
okay, I'm going to move approval of plan application 14-038, design review and conditional use permit, and a parking exception for 833 Pomona. With the findings and conditions in the staff report, and that asks that the applicant work on the final details with the staff on the finishes and the final details on the railing.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and staff, you're all comfortable with that? All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's been approved. Okay. So we have approved your project at 833 Pomona. There's an appeal period of 14 days, and at the end of that time, then you can proceed with getting your building permits and as you need to do. One thing we'd like to ask, just as a favor to us anyway, is that after the appeal period is run, that you take down your story poles. We've noticed that sometimes story poles stay up for months and.
Correct.
But yeah, you should, in case there's an appeal, then it would be appealed to city council, and the city council would need to see those story poles. So if you please take them down after the appeal period runs, okay? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move backwards on our agenda then. Stacy's back with us. And the next item then, it will be our first item for the evening, planning application 14039 for a second-story addition at 919 Ordway. So, Ann, do we have a staff report?
Yes. Before you is a request for a design review for a second-story addition at 919 Ordway. The subject lot is 5,750 square feet with an existing 1,500 square foot home that has 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The applicant is proposing to add just under 1,100 square feet of new living space to the home. This will result in the reconfiguration of the first floor to create a new family room, closet space, and remodeled kitchen. The new second story will include a master suite with sunroom, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and an upstairs laundry. Altogether, this will result in a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom home, 2,625 square feet in area with a maximum height of 28 feet. The existing home is craftsman in appearance and is proposed to remain. And there are 2 off-street parking spaces provided in the adjacent driveway. And on the screen, you have the existing street elevation, and with that, you have the proposed elevation. So you can see that there are a number of characteristics of the existing home that are being carried forward, including the bridge details, the gable roof lines, the brackets. It's very much going to mirror the existing architecture of the home. There is also a proposal to change out the guardrail on the front porch. Both the north and south elevations will include skylight and relocated photovoltaic panels. And the chimney is proposed to be demolished as part of this proposal. The architect is here this evening, as is one of the homeowners. And with that, we recommend approval of the project and can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff?
No.
Nope. No questions. Okay. Ms. Jason, you're present here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your project here?
Sure. I'll keep it pretty brief. Ann did a very good job presenting it. All of the aspects of the application are conforming in setback and height and floor area ratio. The upper floor does set back from both the front and rear walls of the existing house. Sets back about 2.5 feet from the rear wall so that we don't have a blunt 2-story element off the back. Helps with a little bit of daylighting. We are changing the orientation of the primary roof over the house. The primary roof slopes from the street towards a ridge that's parallel to the street, and we are changing that. Currently, the house has solar panels on the roof on 2 facets of the roof, and we will be lifting those off the lower existing roof and relocating them on the new upper roof. And in providing this cross gable, we're providing a really logical roof surface to relocate those panels to, and we've shown those on the drawings. We've shown the number of panels that we're relocating to the upper roof. The upper floor sets back to a point that is more or less the break point between the front rooms of the house and the middle rooms of the house. So it's the break point between the living room and the dining room, for instance. So it's a good distance back, but it's not so far back that when you're standing across the street, you're not going to see this kind of appearance that the straight-on 2-dimensional exterior elevation presents. And it's something that, we're not alone in doing this, and I think it's done nicely. It creates a scale of gable that matches the historic patterns, where you have a sort of a minor gable over a front porch and a major gable over the entire house. Our second stories tend to do that. And on the back, we do present 2 little projecting window bays to articulate the rear facade as well. Subsequent to our applying for this, and I gave Ann a very late drawing. The owners, just as you mentioned in the prior application, design doesn't seem to end, and decision-making never is final until it's built. The existing house has the 9-square prairie-style windows, but not completely. In other words, the house has been it's been what is the word, raided of its history. They looked at first doing the 9-square everywhere, the prairie style window everywhere. And when we looked at it, it started to be quite busy. And so we sort of moved away from it and presented this cottage style with the windows, with the divisions up at the top. That gave more vision panel at more of the windows, and it seemed to be not quite as busy. But the more that they looked at that, the more they realized it was a little bit of a departure from the house. So we're now proposing a modified prairie design where we delete the bottom horizontal strike. And where windows are composed in multiple groupings, we make them left-handed and right-handed so that they are a composition unto themselves. And I rather like this, and we've done things like this on other projects, and I think the applicants have really enjoyed them. And I think when we drive around the neighborhoods, we see all of the different ways one can subdivide these windows and still be within the craftsman vernacular and still kind of speak to that heritage. And yet this has got a little bit of a modern twist. So that was the late incoming change. And then we made a very, very minor change in the layout of the kitchen, which resulted in a slight change to the window composition there as well. But that's a side yard and very deep into the property and very difficult for anyone to see.
The modification to the kitchen didn't affect the exterior then?
No, two of the windows that were facing the side yard, we changed them ever so slightly. There was a 6-footer and a 5-footer, and now they're 2 5-footers. And one of them was a gang of 3 and a gang of 2, and now it's a picture window and a gang of 2.
Just the paper.
And maybe, I don't know if you have, do you have the overhead?
All right. Okay,
No.
any questions of the architect? Not right now. We may call you back.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Oh, one question.
Yes, that was quick.
I'm in a mood today. Your street elevation, it's really out of proportion. No, I mean your actual street drawing, where you have the photographs of the two houses.
Oh, do you mean the photo montage?
Yeah.
It's a very
Unfortunately, your house is still up higher
Yeah, it's,
because you're.
we used to go and try to measure the neighbors' houses and draw them. And when we do the photo montage, you always have the problem of perspective. You've got a flat 2D drawing that presents a gable way the hell front, and your best bet is to try to scale what is the street wall, maybe what's 15 feet back, and that isn't always as done.
Your house is dropped down to the street, when in actuality it's uphill.
Oh, I see what you're saying. In other words, the vertical position of the photo montage is off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will
It's right behind
I
you.
will mention that to my staff.
You can see what I'm talking about. The adjacent neighbor houses are up.
Yes. Yeah, the whole scale of it is not, it's just not zoomed right.
I know, I understand that.
Yeah.
but It's when you guys.
We won't do that
You didn't help
again.
yourself on that one.
We won't do that
As
again.
I said earlier, everybody's here you got to sell your designs, and you do a nice job of it. I still would like to see some shadows on it so you can easily see
I'm going to
depth.
give you the model.
Yeah.
I'll give you the 3D model. We'll give you a snapshot next time. Would you like that, seriously? A snapshot of the model with some shadows?
Yeah. I mean, again, we're here to sell, as architects, you're up here to sell your project, and the best way to convey it is by selling it
Yeah,
with a good set of drawings.
yeah.
Yours, I mean, I don't mean to be, again, I don't know why I just started this.
You didn't eat dinner
It's
tonight,
like-
did you?
No, actually going places and seeing what when I'm doing presentations in other cities and seeing what everybody else is getting presented, and then I come here and see what we're getting presented. It's yours are better.
No, but can I speak to that for a second? Because I do know what you're talking about, and we've had an internal discussion about how do we show work to the city when half of it is existing and half of it is new. And we want to be able to articulate what is existing and what is new, and that does not lend itself to a full rendering. A full rendering completely obscures the before and after aspect. And I know exactly what you're talking about because I have witnessed it in these other communities. I'm working in at least 15 communities in the Bay Area, and I know exactly what you're talking about, where the entire thing is rendered as if new,
Right. And,
with shadows.
and you can easily do the rendering with shadows. You pale out, or you use a
Sure.
white or a gray for
Sure,
the
sure.
existing, and the color for your new, and it really pops. And then you
Sure.
go, oh, okay, now I can understand how this gable roof's interacting with this other cross gable and such. And I also know what a nightmare it is doing it on craftsman-style houses. You can render it forever and still not come up with, but again, we're interested in massing. And looking at some of the massing, I think that would, but that's, again, you do a nice job, but I still would like to see more being presented to the Albany.
Sure.
Question, this is the window change that you just spoke of reflected here. And this is a lake-breaking change that we don't have in our packets,
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, both the style, the divisions of the windows, and then those two particular windows, the windows at the kitchen, the last two on the lower floor on the right of the south elevation.
Any other questions? Jason?
Okay, I actually will ask a question about the fireplace, and I see that you're shifting to a gas insert that has a direct vent, and I was curious if you had explored the option of changing the chimney, going ahead and taking the brick chimney out and putting a steel chimney in, and going ahead and having it come all the way down to the ground, as opposed to something that's cantilevered out.
Cantilevered. The problem generally is that there is a walking path there, and although this driveway doesn't have the problem, maybe the last applicant, we really got quite a lot of width here, including an extra bit of walking surface to the left of the driveway. But Tomo and Shelley have a fair amount of storage in the understory, and we're widening one of the doors there, and it's going to facilitate, and not having that pop out of the base of the chimney, it's going to facilitate them getting the double stroller in and out. So that's the reason for not having that mass there. But I'm going to make sure I've got some corbels and make it look nice. The flue issue is probably not out of the question in terms of doing a metal flue and not having the direct vent model. I think that's something, again, that's part of the evolution of product selection. They haven't actually purchased this yet, so it could be that that's one of the things we work on with Anne when we figure out what model they have picked.
I guess this is a comment in general, and so I understand why you're moving forward in that direction, but one of the characteristics in Albany are the fireplaces and the chimneys, and it would be sad if more projects were moving to something that was like this, and we lose the characteristic of the chimney and of the firebox. So, okay.
I don't feel that badly about it on this project because the front porch and the stairs have so much articulation.
Right.
I mean, it's overloaded with detail. And we're furthering it with the guardrail design. But I'm noting this.
That's an excellent point, because I think if you would have raised that and put a small shed roof over it, get it up higher, so it's proportioned.
So it's got a little bit of length. I'll do that.
And then
I'll do that.
Then it might, and then, a little bit of overhang.
Yeah,
Then you've got a.
I'll do that. I'll make it into a piece
What
of
do you think,
architecture.
Stacy?
Design opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big image on the side, and maybe raising it, putting a roof on it that matches the other roofs.
And one can get a direct vent gas heater, which with a vertical flue for both the exhaust and intake through that same stack.
Right.
So it could look more like a regular chimney. And it only has to go 18 inches above the immediately adjacent roof.
Right.
It doesn't have
Rather than-
the same clearance requirements that a fireplace or wood-burning appliance would have. All good points.
Other comments? Okay, great. Thank you. Let's see, where are we? Public hearing. Is there anyone who'd like, we do have a speaker card
We
on
do have a
this? All
speaker
right.
card. Eric.
Okay, please come forward.
Okay, so I'm one of the tenants next door. Myself and two other people rent 917, which is the house to the north.
North, okay.
And the landlords, I'm not sure if they're aware of this project, but I asked my housemates if they had any comments or questions. One of them was on vacation. I wrote one question from him. And then I have kind of a mixture of questions and comments and suggestions for the conditions. First of all, though, I hope the outcome of this is that you approve the construction and approve the project. For a question, how many more meetings minimum are there until a final approval where they wouldn't need to get any further approvals from the city?
This would be the final approval unless it's appealed to the city council. So,
Okay.
as I think you heard earlier, there's a 14-day appeal period. If we approve it tonight, then that would be the final approval. No more public hearings, no more public meetings, unless someone appeals it to the city council.
Were there any previous meetings?
No.
Is there any further opportunity to change the conditions of approval?
This is a good time to do it.
Okay.
Right now.
What condition? Right now is the
Okay.
time.
So
We open to your suggestions.
there was something else that I was noticing from the drawings is that apparently the fence that divides our property is actually encroaching onto their property a couple feet, giving us a few more feet.
Based on the survey?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Okay.
just, and I hadn't been previously aware of that, and I'm wondering if that means that they're free to remove and replace the fence on the property line as a part of the project.
I think my drawings are so small. I think I see what you're referring to. On the north side, that would...
We have a fence, I mean, we have a tree stump, no, the tree. No? There's no plan. All right.
I'm sorry, I missed that? I said there's no plan to do anything. No plans to change, no plans to change the fence now.
One of the guidelines is that the front yard landscaping contributes to the street, and if
Correct.
I noticed that there's a strip of grass there now, and I think if the contractors go and they trample it to death, I wonder if it could be replaced with something that's not grass to be more consistent with the climate in California, with the drought and such. And I think that's somewhat separate from the project. Let's see. I wonder if it's possible to make a condition that the contractors have insurance equal to the value of the project. I don't want to see them get screwed by their contractors and have it be left hanging for extended periods of time. I noticed the hours are limited to 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I wanted to let you know that with the hours we keep, we would be cool if it was extended to 7:30 a.m. start to 6:30 p.m. end, so that they could construct for wider hours during the day and then perhaps get the project done sooner. I guess most people who comment have a different opinion, but that we'd be fine with wider hours.
I need to find a contract that has a watch that starts at 8 o'clock. I normally see them starting at 7:30. We don't,
But they typically stop by 4.
yeah.
Yeah.
We can't force them to
Yeah.
work more than
Yeah.
8-hour days.
Since the sun goes to the across the sky to the south, I think our property is the one that will get less sun as a result of this. I'm wondering if you're talking about shadows on the drawings. I wonder if I could just see what parts of a property would receive no direct sunlight whatsoever, so that I could just plan where to plant plants that are currently right up against the property. There's parsley and tomatoes, and I'm wondering if I could just know what area is not going to get any sun whatsoever, if they're going to add shadows to a drawing.
Did you say your plants are right along the fence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to change the shadows on that,
On the north side?
because it's maybe 6 feet. If that's a 6-foot fence, figure 6 feet of shadow.
Okay.
So then beyond the 60, yes, there is going to be more shadow.
Well, it varies depending on the time of
Yeah,
year.
with time of day and time of
Depends
year,
on the
but
time
I'm
of
just
year
giving an
and all that,
example of,
yeah.
that fence already shadows a portion of that during growing season.
And there's an area of plants that's in the backyard that's further off from the fence. Let's see.
Okay.
And then the question from my housemate was, we're concerned about the privacy of the applicants if they add a second story. Would it be possible to add a condition that there be curtains on the bathroom windows so that there's no possibility of us being able to see into the bathrooms? We currently have plants that are growing up above the fence that conceal the bathroom, and I think that that may no longer be the case if the plants get less light or if there's additional bathrooms that face our side.
Okay. They what? On the south side.
On the upper
south
floor,
side.
the new floor.
No, it's more likely their stairway that comes down on the north side, you're going to be able to look into your property.
That's okay. I'm not concerned about our privacy.
Okay,
I'm concerned about theirs.
okay. All right.
Oh, yeah, and you'd mentioned the other place, removing the story poles. That's a great idea for this one as well. The story poles have kind of a caution tape on them that makes a flapping noise, and at night it sounds like a raccoon coming over the fence. I kind of have to look outside and see if they're eating my plants.
Minor irritant, huh? Yeah, okay. That's good. All right. Did everyone get his points? I may have missed one or
got 'em.
two. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank
I
you.
think that's great. Appreciate your input. All right. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the commission on this project? Okay, I see no one, and so I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission. Who would like to start the discussion?
I'll jump into this one.
Great.
Well, let me just say, it's nice to not have to talk about parking.
Yeah.
When we have a big lot like this, and you can fit 2 parking spaces, we expect that, and you've done that. This is a very handsome expansion. I think it's appropriate. It is similar to those in this neighborhood, and for that reason is all the more appropriate. The drawings presented by the architect this evening showing an altered muntin pattern, in my opinion, improve the project, so I'm wholly in favor of doing that. I too am open to modification of the gas heater replacement at the fireplace area. I have no trouble with it cantilevering and creating more width at the driveway and access to the lower level, but I think that something creative at the top of that would benefit it. I'm comfortable leaving it in the hands of the architect and staff to review and approve it. Just to address some of the comments were made by the neighbor, and we appreciate your coming down and helping us discuss the project. Privacy is something that we do take seriously, and I think the architect has actually shaped the project to address that. We do have a condition of approval that landscaping follow the city's guidelines for drought tolerant, what do they call it? Bay-friendly landscaping.
Bay-friendly landscaping.
Yes, so that's already a condition of the project. And while you might be comfortable with extended construction hours, some of the other neighbors might want to call the city and say, what are your construction hours? So those will remain as they are. And the owners will have to carefully craft a contract with the builder to ensure a good project. And the architect will help with that, no doubt. So with that, I'm very happy to support this project.
Next.
Let me just say ditto. No, I
yeah.
agree with everything you
Ditto.
said, and I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, I don't have much to add either, except that I do like the window design, except that I wondered, to my non-architect eye, whether or not it'd be, you've taken, as you mentioned, instead of having the same design on all the windows where there's the composite windows, you have the design across several windows sometimes. I personally don't like that as much, but that's my opinion. Otherwise, ditto.
Ditto, yeah.
Actually, yeah, I do agree with you. I think the mullions, the muttons need to be worked out a little bit better. They look too tight to the window frames.
Would you be willing to pass the drawing down when you're finished?
No.
You're done.
I'm done, I'm sorry.
You're done.
I'll probably interrupt again.
I love that you came and made this adjustment to the window design, because that was the one thing that, it's the existing house has casements, it has sliders, it has, it's an Albany house, it's been modified, and, which direction do you go? And I understand why you were initially going in this direction, but I was going to make the recommendation to maybe pick up some of the original language. You've done that. The three windows that kind of catch my eye, or the four windows, are the front elevation, the three kind of bringing it across. I don't know, it may not be enough on the front elevation where it is on the sides. So I would be encouraging to maybe look at that one more time. It's not a requirement by me. I just thought, as the design continues to evolve, if you have further thoughts there, I'd be willing to allow that to kind of become a little bit more detailed. And then I see that you move from kind of a four-window configuration in the stairwell to kind of one large window, and it seems like the window got smaller. And I actually like the larger four square without the smaller, the prairie, sorry, I'm not saying this very well. See, it looks like the window might have become smaller. And if you wanted to explore a little bit of further design there, I would be accepting of that as well. It doesn't necessarily have to match exactly what is going on the other windows, but having said that, I think I agree with Commissioner Arkin that it's a balanced design, it's thoughtful, and I'm willing to approve it.
Yeah, I think you make a good point that, and maybe Jason, you could come up and speak to how tight the muntin is at those corners. It looks like it could be as little as 3 inches.
Yeah, right now the DLO on that is 3, and it could easily be 4.5 or 5. And I'm not even 100% certain that where we are in that decision-making process, because it happened so recently. So I'd be happy to open it, talk about that with Tomo and Shelley and open that up a little bit so that it's maybe a little bit more like 4.5 or 5, because it's not a 9-square thing anymore, so it could have a little more air.
Right, you're covering more
and then
windows with it.
Then the big tall stair window, what happened there was, when you start to get pricing back on everything, then you realize, geez, every window decision starts to add cost. And then you look at privacy, and you look at the aesthetics, and one of the things that Shelley and Tomo really would like to do is to have a piece of art glass on that stair. And they've looked at some of the manufacturers, and right now we're favoring Jeld-Wen's Premium Sightline EX and their custom line, which is a clad wood window, and it's a very nice product. Both lines are very nice products. And they have looked at offerings from those companies and others who will do a stained glass window integral. But the cost of it is exorbitant. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So a way of allowing them to have an art glass window was to bring the overall square footage of that window down. I'm not sure that the north neighbor is ever going to appreciate a lay light stained glass window that's applied on the inside, but they certainly will, and the house will. So that's where that's coming from. And we thought it gratuitous to add the prairie style to it without knowing what the design for the art glass would be, and so it's a little bit of cart before the horse. And unfortunately, that's kind of what we have to do here tonight. We have to sort of present something and hope that we can stick with it and get to the finish line with it.
So is the idea that the stained glass would kind of, will it actually be incorporated into the final window product, or is it something that will kind of hang
No, it would be
on the
standalone. It would be a
interior?
lay-light interior. It'd be standalone interior. When we looked at the cost from the various manufacturers of doing it, first of all, you'd have certain limitations on the design, and the cost was crazy. I mean, I'd never heard of a window costing that much. Not even a folding door
So it's
costing
a
that much.
fixed unit.
It's a
and
fixed
then-
unit.
And then you would just have it.
Apply
much
it
like
to
you
the
might
inside.
have the location of
With
the
a piece of
screen.
trim. or
Eighth of an inch
Yeah.
air gap and set into it, and there'd be no hardware to contend with, and no drapery or blind to fuss with.
All right, well, I note that it's fairly far back on the property,
And overall, we made it smaller.
I was going to say, is if it's not any bigger than what you have shown, and it could even get smaller, I don't think that would be an issue.
I think, if I can, there are many cases talking about that one situation where you have this two tall windows. I've seen recently where they actually separated the windows and put a panel that had some vertical trim.
Sure, a batten or something like that,
It
yeah.
was very attractive.
Yeah.
It made the windows smaller, made them probably a lot more economical. But it was a nice detail because it added that detail right there in the middle.
Yeah. I think I've done almost every variety of stacking side by side, top to bottom on these switchback stairs on these projects here and in Berkeley and El Cerrito and other places. But it's nice to do something new. You know, it's nice for it to be unique to this project. So in this case, the uniqueness was changing the proportion to be tall and skinny with the, to accentuate the height of that space, and then to have the interior applied lay light.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, and just as a FYI, there is a panel that is on the front facade. There's like a recessed panel on the front facade of the porch that we could kind of rip some DNA from for the projecting bay for the fireplace.
Oh.
That would add a band at the bottom and a recessed panel in the middle that would kind of harmonize with that. I think it shows
Okay.
up. If you've got the front elevation, I think we have it.
Just to the side there. Yep. Right. Oh, yeah. Yep. Got it. Good. All right. Well, I agree with everyone. I really think it's a very attractive design. It'll be a beautiful home. I think it'll be a very nice size, and it's going to look great. I really like aspects of it, including what you're proposing to do with the front porch. I like the articulation in the back. It's something I wish I'd done on my own house when we did a second floor addition. And I just think it's a great design, and it's going to be a great project, and I support it.
Oh, may I add one more comment? And it's about the hot tub, and I'm glad that your neighbor is here, just to maybe let your neighbors know that you're planning to have a hot tub there, and there will be a motor. Oh, it's already there. Okay.
Okay.
In other cities, they're now requiring it as a use permit so that the neighbors are alerted about that there's going to be a motor turned on next door.
We've had troubles with noise before. Thing here. Yep. Okay, so I think I'll accept the motion.
Further discussion? No?
Any further discussion, please?
I will make a motion to approve planning application 14-039, a second-story addition at 919 Ordway, incorporating all of the conditions outlined in the staff report, plus incorporating the elevation that we received tonight, illustrating an alternate window muntin pattern with a minimum offset on those muntins of 4 inches, and modification of the gas fireplace direct vent insert with staff review of that detail.
Glad you got all those points. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? No one's opposed. Okay. So you've been approved unanimously for your project. There is a 14-day appeal period. And again, I will say that we're asking people to take down the story poles as a favor to the city after the appeal period is run. Thank you very much. Good luck with the project going forward. Great. Okay. The next item on our agenda is 833 Pomona, if I have that right. Planning application for...
We did that one.
We just did that. We did that one. I have
We
to
do it
move
again.
forward. 911 Carmel it is. 911 Carmel. This is design review for an addition and major remodel. Planning application 14020, 911 Carmel.
Before you start,
All right.
I'm going to recuse myself.
And Phil will recuse himself from this, okay? All right. You're within 500 feet, huh? Mhm.
It's right in my backyard.
Oh, very close to it, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's close.
okay.
My wife sold the house.
Ann, do you have a staff report? Phil's, you're going to come back?
Maybe.
Okay.
Applicant is seeking a design review approval to lift and convert existing space into new habitable space at 911 Carmel. The subject lot is 4,400 square feet with an existing 1,100 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. The applicant is proposing to lift the home to create a new kitchen and living area in the lower level. Will create 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms on the second floor. Parking, 2 off-street parking spaces will be provided in the new attached 2-car garage. The overall height is proposed to increase to 24 feet 9 inches. And the appearance of the home will change quite dramatically from Spanish Revival to a very modern appearance with horizontal siding and stucco. Altogether, this will result in a 2,420 square foot home with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. I don't know if you drove by the site, but previously a building permit was issued for demolition of a swimming pool and foundation repair work in the spring. After initiating the work, the applicants decided to pursue a design review application to add additional area to the existing home, as well as change the appearance. The pool was substantially removed, though there is a 524 square foot accessory structure, which was formerly the pool house, which is proposed to remain untouched. The house has been up on cribbing for the last couple of months while this application has been pursued, and to our knowledge, no activity has occurred on site. As I mentioned, the existing architectural style is Spanish Revival, and on the screen, this is the house as it appeared prior to the construction. The applicant is proposing to change all facades and roofline details, and so as you can see, it's going to be dramatically different with sliding doors. On the east side, a new front entry. Chimney is proposed to be removed. The elevations are going to be entirely different from what's existing. There will be new windows, roof lines, and column supports. The roof will be composition shingle with painted metal gutters. The elevations will feature horizontal stained wood siding. There's a trellis also proposed, as well as painted cement plaster and board form concrete. The windows are proposed to be aluminum casement, and the trellis will be wood with translucent panels. Skylights are also proposed on the north and south elevations, as well as solar panels on the south elevation. To accommodate the driveway expansion and garage, there is a note on the plans to remove the magnolia tree at the street. In order to do so, the applicant must first apply for a tree removal permit pursuant to the city's tree removal policy. This permit goes before the city's Parks and Recreation Commission for action and review. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. The applicant is here this evening, and we recommend approval of the project.
Any questions? No, I guess I have a question. So instead of story poles, did they just raise the building?
It gives you a somewhat literal appearance, yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see, any, no other questions of staff? All right, the applicant present, the architect? Great. Gary?
Good evening.
Hi.
This house is pretty much a total makeover. My clients requested that since they've started their lift, they wanted to go all the way and really change the house from what it was, a small bungalow, into a contemporary home. They really liked the idea of bringing in parking into the home, a two-car garage, taking out the driveway along the side, doing more landscaping, and making the ground floor into a real, like a large family room. Kitchen, dining, living, opening out into the backyard and into the area where the pool was before. They'll use the existing pool house as an office and a guest room. And the second floor then will keep 2 of the rear bedrooms and the 1 bathroom, and we'll make the former living dining room into a master bedroom suite. We're also going to have a small front deck off the master suite. There's an open stairway we're building with a glass corner looking towards the street and the north side yard. I think one of the features of the house that I'm intrigued by is that instead of having a front door, we've moved the entrance to the side, and we've brought out a small office pop-out to make a covered entrance, and we're going to make a landscaped entry. We've even shaped the house such that I've taken the northwest corner out, cut it back, and we've opened it up so it kind of lets you open up and into the side yard. Well, we'll landscape, and the actual fence line will be back at the back of the house, so you'll have a landscaped side yard and entrance yard. Height-wise, we've pushed the house up, but we've used a gable roof, and we've brought out a horizontal soffit all the way around so that the house visually is lower, and the height of 24.9 is actually to the high point of the gable, which is about 10 feet in. So technically, we could even be lower than we're saying 24.9. In the back, we're about 20.2 above grade. The change in the character of the house also is at the owner's request that they wanted a contemporary home. So we've really changed the components of the house. We're using a stained horizontal siding, wood side cedar siding on the upper story. We created a kind of a drip line, sill line at the second floor to kind of break it. Then we have a cement plaster coming down, stucco coming down, and at the garage we're going to use a base line of board formed concrete. The front garage doors are sandblasted glass and aluminum frames, so it'll be it's kind of a glowing front. Second floor, we've kind of massed together casement windows to wrap on the west and wrap around on the north side and open up onto the deck. There aren't many windows on the ground floor on the south side of the house, one only to the back off the dining. But these houses, if you look at the photos, the house to the south is about 4 feet from the property line, and with the connecting, there's like an actual wall coming out that kind of blocks their side yard. We're going to meet it with a gate, and really that side will just be landscaped and a walking area and kind of more utility. So most of our windows are all on the second floor. Now when we get to the rear, we're going to really open the house up with 8-foot height sliding doors opening off the family room into what is a slightly recessed, about a 10-foot deep patio, who then steps up into the backyard. We'll cover that with a trellis with a translucent panel on it so that it gives you weather protection but allows light through, and you can see and read the wood. One of the other features that I like about the house is they've requested that we put in solar panels as part of the design, and the orientation of the house works very well for that. On the 3D models, I've kind of shown them, and I've shown them on the elevations. Those are just an approximation that hasn't really been designed yet as the exact extent of the panels, but they'll locate them at part of the house. We've taken off the masonry chimney that used to be on the south side. It's now in the garage, so we're putting in a gas fireplace and built in the family room, but it will have no visible chimney. That's kind of, a lot of things are happening with that house, and we really like the way that it's formed and laid out.
Great. Thank you. Any questions?
No.
None right now? Okay, great. Appreciate it. We'll call you back if we have other questions for you. All right, then I'll open the public hearing, and we have speakers.
We have two speaker cards,
Okay.
Kevin Goss and Keith Weinstein.
Okay.
Is my timer?
Sure. Hi.
Hi, thanks for letting me speak. I wanted to start by saying that the street on Carmel there is a really closely knit neighborhood. Everybody knows each other, and the kids play in each other's yards, and we close the street off for 2 or 3 times a year to have neighborhood block parties. So we're really looking forward to having you in the neighborhood and having you as neighbors. Excuse me, I'm a little nervous. I haven't gotten off to the best start starting construction and then applying for permits. Yes, there haven't been storyboards in the neighborhood, and the first we heard about it was the house has been up on stilts for months, and then they decide that the new construction is going to go in. I'd like to. So the neighborhood is small and it's close knit. The architecture that we see in the plans that were portrayed here doesn't fit in with the character of the neighborhood. It's extremely modern. It doesn't fit in. Reading your design guidelines and how the house addresses the guidelines, they seem to be self-contradictory. The one thing I'd like to address in particular is the 2-car garage door facing the street. Is out of place in the neighborhood, and it might fit in Benicia or Danville, but it's impersonalizes the house and makes it the house not open up onto the street. It doesn't address the street. It faces it off from the street, and it becomes a parking structure. Specifically, I could bring up 818 Carmel, which I walked past on the way to Memorial Park, which is that kind of design, and I shudder every time I walk past that building. The sun, where this house is on the east side of the street, it's up a little bit higher, and so the evening sun is going to be shining directly at the house, and it's going to light up the 2-car garage door like a beacon. And since the house sits up a little bit higher, it reflects the train noise. It's going to catch the train noise from the BART tracks and the Amtrak, and it's the flat surface of all that is going to reflect all that back into the rest of the neighborhood. Which are some of the particular things I can think of that are going to be problematic with that flat design. Also not a big fan of the siding on it. Houses in our neighborhood are stucco and they're Italianate, and they have ornamentation, and siding just seems inappropriate and out of place in the neighborhood and Albany in general, I really think. And lastly, I'd like to say that if my wife sees this design when she comes home from vacation next week, thinking that this is going to go in across the street, she will start to cry. Thank you.
Next speaker. State your name for the record.
My name's Keith Weinstein. Thank you for letting me come to speak. So we got a chance to meet our neighbors, Bob and Kat, right at the beginning, and got off to a good start, but then we saw the house go up, and we're told it was to do the rot underneath the house. And then suddenly it rose another 4 or 6 feet, and we were very curious about why. And then our mayor called, and that's what we heard about it, that it was proposed that it would be a second story. So that didn't go off well for us. We were quite surprised and didn't know what to think about that. But here we are now, and we're glad that there's a process. The design doesn't fit the character of the block at all and concerns us greatly because it doesn't look like anything else on the block. And I could understand that you'd want a lot more space, but maybe there's a better way to do it. I'm surprised that you would have advised them in this direction, but maybe that's too personal. Also, the FAR is quite pronounced. It's up in the high 50s, and it was 37 specified, so it's a big exception. So I'm surprised that that's being approved of by the city planner without more thought about why that would be. You have that existing cabana house, so maybe that is part of why the FAR is so high. I don't know if that's included, but there's a lot of property, there's a lot of house on that limited space, so that also doesn't fit the character of the block. So it just seems like more thought has to go into the planning and the design so that you can have more 3-bedroom, 2-bath. That's understandable, but it doesn't fit the character, and it leaves us very concerned. It's a very tight community. There's like 10 wonderful kids running up and down the block. All the families know each other. We look forward and know that you'll enjoy that too. So we just feel like it should get off to a better design plan and hope that that could be remediated. Thank you for listening.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to address the commission on this item, on this project? Not right now, seeing no one. Shall I close the public hearing? I'll close the public hearing then. Bring it back to the commission. Where would we like to start the discussion on this?
I can start if you
Okay,
want.
go ahead.
So I think Phil would be proud if you were here that we have the 3D drawings to look at here, or he'd be happy anyway. And as I am too, because I can get a much better sense for the design. And in general, I think the design is good, and I think that we, as mentioned before, we don't that we don't necessarily shy away from the diversity of architectural styles. So I'm not in general. I'm not opposed in general to the modern appearance. But so one minor thing though to note, I was taking a look at the street view, and it appears that there are 2 magnolia trees in front, one smaller one and one larger one.
I think so.
And I'm wondering if you were proposing to just take the smaller one out or both of them.
There's one right where the driveway would go. That would have to come out.
Yeah, I think that it's I mean, if
approved,
it's
yeah.
if it's what I think it is, I think it's
Yeah.
the smaller one would have to come out and the larger one would remain, which would be the preferred thing.
Yeah.
Both of them? Okay, because it says an magnolia. Well, it only references one magnolia tree in the report, but I do see 2 in the street view.
What would be the? Would be the southernmost one that would have to come out, and I can't remember if that's the bigger or the smaller. Yeah. It's the smaller.
It's the smaller one that would have to come out?
Okay.
Okay, that's good because, well, the Parks and Recreation Commission, on which I also served, I might not be too inclined to take out a mature magnolia tree like that. So it's good that it's a smaller one. Anyway, I agree with but I do agree with the person who spoke about the garage door facing the street. That is contrary to our guidelines as far as I know. And also our guidelines, I noted a detail in them that says that the garage door should be single car doors and not one, not a larger door for the 2 cars. I think in the case of this design, it works because it's articulated, but I do note that in the design guidelines. So that does bother me, and I would like to hear what the other commissioners have to say about that and other aspects of the design.
Okay. Stacy, go ahead.
So I hear, we hear what you're saying, the concern about the varied language. And this isn't a question this is something that we've discussed on many projects in Albany when we have more modern designs coming in. And so what we like to do is look for thoughtful, balanced designs that maybe have proportionate windows to the the projects that are adjacent to them, that doesn't seem so out of scale, that has varied materials, that have thoughtful details so that the project can be an asset to the community. And so what we're interested in modern architecture. We embrace it. There's a place for it in Albany, and I realize that maybe you don't want this right next door to your house, but we are looking for high levels of detail, and with a floor area ratio of 54.4%, we are going to be asking for high-level finishes, high-level details, so that it will be a thoughtful design. The characteristics that are in the existing house are somewhat minimal compared to the other houses that are up and down the street. There are some details, some characteristics that are there that we could ask to repeat or kind of be brought forward, but it seems a little bit, I'm going to use a metaphor here, a little bit vanilla, and so in this case, I think it's appropriate. If this project had some beautiful craftsman details or some really kind of thoughtful moments within the original design, we might think twice about it. But in this case, the house itself is somewhat plain, and so it seems like an appropriate house to go ahead and change the language on. I also was thinking about because our design guidelines call for carriage style doors. They kind of advocate for single doors, but I think in this project, because of the proportion of the door, it makes sense to go ahead and keep it a large single door. I actually like that the whole door is frosted glass, because that reflectivity will make it feel more like a window. It will make it feel less like a garage door and more like a window. So if it was something that was solid and painted and slatted, it's going to be more closed off. But because it's going to be frosted and light, and maybe the light will be on, it'll be glowing a little bit, I actually think that that's a good characteristic, and that's something that we would want to advocate for a project like this that has such a large door. The other concern I had initially was putting the garage door on the facade, but the houses on either side of it both also have their garage doors and their curb cuts on not to the side of the house, but right under the house. So it's consistent with what's going on to the left and to the right of it. The inconsistency is the size, and it's a two-car garage versus a one, and we can talk about the merits of that if we'd like. We've also had various conversations about putting porches on the side. This one's kind of located further back, and we've actually asked with other designs for them to make it more pronounced or bring it forward. But I think also in this case, the way that you walk past and that you've created a porch, a landing zone, something that from the street, from the sidewalk, you can see the porch, you know that that's where you're going to go. It seems appropriate in this case to go ahead and continue with that, but I wanted to let you know that we have had those conversations in the past. I'm curious about the pool house, and it seems to me that could be a potential second unit down the road. And that's something that we would be in advocacy for, and that Albany is trying to incorporate more second units. So that's something to think about. Phase 2. I think for now that's all I have to say. I'm sure Commissioner Arkin has a lot more to add. I was concerned about the south elevation, the lack of windows, and I was thinking, oh, that's a great opportunity to put a little slot window between your upper and your lower counter. But as you say, the fence is going to be right there, and it's going to be a passageway. So I appreciate that you brought brought that to our attention early on. And so I'm comfortable leaving that elevation as it is.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have a lot of conflicting comments, or comments that conflict with existing patterns on the street. So I'm just going to put it all out there, and we'll have a further discussion and see if it lands anywhere. You know, first of all, and I hope the architect isn't offended, but this design doesn't strike me as overly modern. You know, it's somewhat traditional in its, you know, choice of materials and a, you know, wraparound hip roof. Yeah, it's sort of more of a 40s. You know, and not in a bad way either. I think it's quite attractive. It, you know, uses a nice combination of stucco and wood, horizontal wood siding, and bringing the stucco up to the window sill on the second level. So, you know, in a general architectural character, it doesn't strike me as overly modern or out of character with Albany. There are, however, a few things that I think are mostly missed opportunities. You know, we do have a guideline that really says, you know, the house's front facade and its front porch and the front yard are its contributions to the street, and what really make that transition between, you know, the sidewalk and the front door. And what's conflicting here is that a number of the homes on this block do have side entries. But when you have a side entry, you also typically have a living room that's out in front of that you're walking around before you come in the side door. In this case, you're walking around a garage, and I think that's what I'm having a hard time with, is that there's not much of a contribution here other than a two-car garage with a driveway that's also 2 cars wide. The second thing about the garage is that while you know, the neighboring homes are split level, so you actually go down a little bit into the garage, you're actually rising up to get into this one, and then you have a 12-foot 9-inch ceiling in that garage before the bedroom above it begins. And so what you end up with is an overly tall front facade. And then if you bring that stucco up to the sill line of the windows above, I appreciate the way it continues and becomes a little porch, but it becomes a big wall. The trellis helps to, you know, mitigate that some. And I'm not sure if I have a good solution for that, you know, other than maybe, you know, sinking the entire house, and then or having a few steps down into that front bedroom. But it's a detail that I'm grappling with here, and I'm wondering if there aren't some creative solutions. And finally, you brought up the issue of the 2-car garage. I think one of the you know, speakers from the neighborhood also brought up that, you know, it's a pattern that is rare in Albany, and when you do come across it, it can, in certain areas in particular, and this block is one of them, it can be out of character. I think there could be a way of having 2 separate garage doors, and maybe they're staggered in plan, and perhaps that can relate to the bedroom and the balcony above in a way that there's still 2 automobiles side by side, but you don't have that 2-car garage. I think what's unfortunate with that configuration is you're not only losing front yard space, but you're also expanding the curb cut, which means less parking on the street. So that might be something to explore. Is there a way to have a narrower curb cut and still be able to get those 2 cars? And of course, we accept tandem parking as you know, a way of achieving 2 automobiles. That's not as convenient for the homeowners. So I could appreciate why someone who has the opportunity to start over, you know, may not want to pursue that pattern. We're certainly not going to mandate it, but I think some mitigation of the way that the front garage door sits on the street needs to be dealt with. I think if there were a way that the entry could have more presence on the front facade, I could warm up to this proposal.
Could I piggyback onto your comment about the garage? I think there's a house on Sonoma Avenue near Monterey where it slips from Albany to Berkeley, so it's on the Berkeley side, and they have a very similar design where it's a two-car garage. They have a trellis above. They kept the existing tree, and they have a narrower curb cut that widens to a larger driveway. And because it pinches down at the street, it doesn't feel so large. I guess it doesn't feel like it takes up the whole yard, and it keeps the older tree that was there. So that might be something worth exploring, and I'm glad that Commissioner Arkin mentioned that, adjusting maybe shaping the driveway a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know, were you finished with your thoughts, David?
I think I am. I think hopefully I, in the end, articulated some direction.
You know, the other thing that you mentioned, which I found interesting, was the concern about maybe a monolithic facade with the stucco, and I'm wondering if opening up that balcony, like pulling it down and making it more, like where you could see through it a little bit, would help with that. It starts to lose some privacy to the bedroom upstairs.
I don't know. Might. Railing above it. Right.
We should probably bring you up to the microphone, but yeah. But while you're walking up here, I actually really do enjoy the water table that you've created between the stucco and the siding, and that tracks all the way around and gives a change of material.
Where was the project you mentioned?
It's on Sonoma in Monterey. Yeah, it's at Monterey in Sonoma, but it's between Sonoma and Monterey and Hopkins. It's on Sonoma.
Monterey and Hopkins?
Between Monterey and Hopkins.
Near the Berkeley Library, that direction?
Yes.
Okay.
To address I can go through a couple of items. The driveway could be reduced. It's 18 feet wide right now, and we could take it down to 14 or 15, kind of balancing it but allowing so when you drive in, you can easily jog over to get the two cars coming into the garage. I did look at splitting the garage doors, but at a certain point when you split, you're widening the amount of frontage you're using. This was, in terms of using the front yard, it minimized the 18 feet. It could even be 16, I guess, for the paving if you wanted to. They're pavers, so they're softer. But one of the things we were doing here is, although we are parking in front, and as you notice, there are driveways into the front of the building on both sides of it, so the pattern's consistent, we're wider. We tried to narrow the front of the garage and widen the front yard and bring it into the side of the house more. So that it kind of takes the front yard deeper into the house and widens it up. And one minor thing, the house is jacked up right now. We're actually moving it over 6 inches to get the 4 feet from the side property line on the south, just to bring us into compliance. I wrestled with the same thing about the garages in the front, but this truly, and this is something we're all aware of, this truly is a usable two-car garage. And my client will be parking her plug-in car in that garage. That's why she wants it like this. So it is usable, and many of the garages, we all know, are never used. They're a door, and it's used for other things. This is going to be a working garage, and the solar panels, the car, were one of the lead-ins to doing it this way. And we have to have two cars, hence the width. Also, this is just another one. I think it's better to remove driveways from the side of houses and get more landscaping between the neighbors than to have a driveway and two cars parked next 4 feet from your neighbor's house with the starting up of the cars and the backing and the going. It's a trade-off. I know it's not in the front, but it's a better side. And you're correct in that the house has a lot of features that are traditional, but I think the massing of the house and the banking, the kind of ganging of the windows, the use of the kind of windows, the doors, and really the use of one large family room kitchen that dominates the whole ground floor is a contemporary way of living. We're no more formal living room, no more formal dining room. It's the space you use where people live in it, and that's what they want to do. And they want to spill out into that backyard, and so we moved the garage's front.
Would you be willing to plant a vine that would soften the facade, a vine that might actually use the trellis?
The trellis we put out front is totally intended for that. That's, it was brought up that it's a high front, the garage is higher, it's an upsloping site. And we did bring the cars up and then bring them in, but we kind of hit the level we could bring them in at. So we're using that trellis as an armature to grow things on. I'm sorry that I'm not that good at SketchUp yet to landscape a project, but this is very stark looking and it's very hard, and that's not the intention at all that you'll see here. If you landscape that side yard and you do a very nice garden, it'll be a beautiful entrance.
I think a beautiful vine growing up and kind of, it'll be fluff and soften the facade, I think could actually really benefit.
I'm glad you mentioned about the starkness of the. I was going to just check with you that that's not all hardscape. It's just the landscaping is just not drawn in.
I don't know if you see the site plan, but it's a series of like concrete slabs, like steps that you walk on with they're open between it, so it isn't a continuous path like that, and it kind of offsets towards the driveway. Also, at the entrance to the house, we've got a landing here, bench, wall, so that it brings that. The side entrance is actually, it's widened the full width of that side yard, it's 9 feet. We have a built-in bench and pavers such that it's a much more place you would sit down where you take your shoes off and you hang out. It's not shut off, it's meant to be open. And the idea of bringing the fence line back to the very back of the house is to leave that whole front entrance open and be more inviting.
Great. Well, call you back if we have more questions. So I think I'll make a few comments before we move forward on it. There were a couple of challenges that the house had with our design guidelines, in my opinion, and certainly the one was that the idea that we emphasize so much about the front of the house or the front porch, the front entry is a gift to the street, and we really have discouraged side entries. So I looked at this pretty closely, and I think, in my opinion, I could be comfortable with the approach here. A couple of things. I think that the porch up higher is an amenity that is in line with that, and that adds interest to the front of the house. And I mean, we'll have people in it all the time, like the drawing shows, but it will add interest and variety to it. And I also like having the large bank of windows at the top. I like the overhang, the large soffits coming out. I like that approach quite a bit. And I get what the architect, what you want to do here with the entryway on the side and the constructed sort of cubby around it that makes it like a porch with steps guiding into it from the street. And I think that could work pretty well, especially if it's done with high-quality materials. The trellis over the garage added interest, but again, I think my initial reaction was that it really needs to be have very high-quality materials. It can't look like an inexpensive contractor-grade redwood thing slapped together. I think the materials for that would be very important. I'm glad to hear that you are thinking of vines to add softness to it. I think that Stacy's made a very good comment about that. This really is a project where we probably would benefit from having a landscape plan, or having required a landscape plan, having a landscape architect's input on this, because I think that the landscaping is going to be a very, very important element of how this home presents itself. I was torn about the garage. I like the idea of the glass panes, and I think they probably will be effective in adding some lightness to the front of the house, and in showing life, when the lights are on in the garage at night. If that happens, there'll be some activity that'll be visible through the garage as time cycles through the day. I think that works okay. The idea of staggering the entrances was one I hadn't thought of, and it could have potential, although you say you've looked at it, and it has its own problems and its own trade-offs, including making a wider front piece. And I like that cutout on the northwest corner. I think that is good, and that is a great landscaping opportunity there. So even if the landscaping were stark in focus, it could still work. I could see a really nice cactus and something like that in that corner, nicely framed, sort of a Southwest style. But if you're talking more of an Albany style of landscaping, I think it could be very effective here. I didn't have a problem. In fact, I kind of like the variation of materials between the first and second floor, and I like the horizontal siding. I like the long lines of the overhanging soffits that added to that. As far as the overall style and the character of the building mixing in with the neighborhood, like Stacy said, I think the existing building doesn't have a great deal of merit. It's not uncommon in Albany, and it is a style that looks very much 1920s, kind of modest, inexpensive housing. And this would be a radical change in that. There's no doubt about it. It would add a great deal of variety to the homes that are on the block. It is a beautiful block. It does seem to have a fairly good variety. I didn't look at all the homes, I'll admit, but it does have some really beautiful traditional homes on it, some craftsman style homes, I know that. It has some nice stucco homes. It does have homes with double garages. I noticed that. I'm not terribly concerned about adding this sort of 1950s kind of style to the block. It doesn't bother me too much. I think it could work, but it's also a big change. Those are basically my comments. Oh, on the window, on the staff has recommended adding a window on the south elevation. Yeah, I looked at that and I thought, wow, it really does need it when you look at the elevation. It just is a big mass of stucco there. I noticed a couple of things. They are going to do that landscaping in the side. And if it's well landscaped, it probably won't make much difference. I also noticed that the home next door appears to have bedroom windows that are looking right into that space. So where you put a window on that wall without having, you know, a visual, a privacy, adding a new privacy problem is a consideration that I had, and I thought maybe that was one reason why there weren't any windows in that wall. You were looking at not having a privacy problem between one house in the south and your house. So I think it's a very interesting design, and I think it is very different. I agree with that. I guess my bottom line is I think it can work, and hoping maybe we can a few more steps that might make it even work better.
You know, 2 or 3 doors up was the apartment building on the corner of Marin and Carmel. And it,
yeah, it's on that block, yeah.
right, and while we don't want this to feel like an apartment building, we want it to feel at the scale of residence.
But that has a lot of square corners.
It's referencing architecture of that era, and it's only a few doors down.
Yeah.
This, of course, the apartment building is, I won't go there.
It's not a beautiful.
It's not, it could use some architecture as well, but anyway. I was going to mention that you have a landscape designer who only lives a few doors down from you, Nina Mullen, and I think that she would probably be very happy to talk with you about your street trees and your design, your landscape design, since she's a neighbor and she's going to have an opinion. I think that's it. That's all I wanted to.
Well, I had a few other things I wanted to
sure.
note. I think it was brought up in the discussion that the project was started without permits, and if I heard staff correctly, that they did receive permits to do
They did have
the
building
pool
permits.
demolition and structural foundation work, and it was in the course of doing that work that it occurred to them that they could
Right.
add space underneath the house. And then the second suggestion was that there's an exception to the floor area ratio, and I believe 55 is the maximum, and they are at 54.4, but as Stacy started the discussion, when we are approaching that maximum, we're looking for both high quality design and a mitigation of the impacts. And I think we do have high quality design. The one thing I continue to have concerns about is the relative height at the front of this house, compared to the rest of the homes on the street. And again, it's the way that you're rising up rather than dropping down into that garage, and then the fact that you have almost a 13-foot plate height, or I guess with a 12-foot, 9-foot plate height at the lower story at the front facade. And so I guess, and we may, ask the architect or the owners to comment on this, but I'm wondering if there's a way of lowering the garage floor level by a foot, and then lowering the upper floor level by 2 feet, and they can choose to take that second foot either out of the ceiling height in the living room or lower the living room as well. And I realize that you're stepping up to the backyard, but I think we have to find a balance between your presence at the sidewalk and how you connect to the backyard. And unless it's a split level, you can't really have both. So
Thank you for saying that.
It was raised another 4 or 6 feet. That's what I don't think that permit do that. It should have been flat.
Oh, I see. I understand what you're saying. And I think it's only up on stilts
It's
now.
up on cribbing, right?
Yeah.
Gary? We should, when you speak, we should have it at the microphone so we can give it recorded.
And would you pull up the front elevation, or actually maybe the section that's on
The section's a
second
good
to the
one,
last
second to last
page?
Yeah.
I wasn't engaged in the initial start of the project, but they had a permit to redo the foundations, take out the pool, and in the process, they raised the house up probably 3 feet or 4 feet maybe. At this point, it's up on cribs, so that they could dig out and build a new foundation with the intention of dropping back down to where it was. So it hadn't been raised without a permit. It never was put down at the completion of that first. They never completed the work. They just stopped.
Yeah.
So there's no foundation in place?
There's no foundation there.
currently? Okay.
Right now, it's just dug out.
Great.
They're kind of stuck, they're kind of frozen. I had one other comment that I want to put in here, because we could look at lowering the house a little bit too, to bring everything down, but at a certain point, we're lowering everything and just digging more into the ground. We wanted to keep at least a 9-foot ceiling in the living room. Was kind of where that's kind of how we came to this height.
10.3. It looks like.
That's a floor to floor.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And there's going to be some major beams in there.
You're
But
right.
we can drop it a little bit. We could even push the house down, another foot maybe total, if that would be a significant improvement. I don't particularly, well, we can look at that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. I had some follow-on comments as well. I think you are working against some constraints here. One idea I thought of, so backing up a little bit, I am a little bit still bothered by the garage at the front, although I think it's looks good and it's well designed, and other garages on either side are in front, but they're on the same plane with all the rest of the house. So the way you've stepped back the design is interesting, but it also serves to kind of thrust out the garage into the front, and that's what's kind of still bothering me. So I was wondering, and I looked at your front setback, and you're already at the
15
maximum. Yeah, you're already at 15 feet there. So because I was thinking maybe could you cantilever the top floor over the garage, but you don't have any room to move there. You'd have to push the garage back, and therefore you'd have to push the whole design back into the backyard a little bit. But I don't know, it might be something to consider to move the entire garage back a little, or maybe move some of the other elements on the side more towards the front, such as the entryway. I'm not an architect, but I'm just throwing it out there that if there were more of that part of the house could move forward, then that mitigates the garage being kind of thrust out.
Along those lines, when I was sitting looking at the photo, I don't know can you bring up the original photo of the front of the house?
Right there, okay.
Look at this house right here, that bay that we're bringing out in the front.
No.
Actually, the other one.
There.
This one? That side door, the new entrance is actually here. The way that it's widened up, even when you're crossing off the street, you'll be seeing that, now that is that side pop out. Isn't hidden as you think of it. You're seeing it from up the street and from both sides. It does contribute. Also, we did, a minor thing, we're putting in benches and things out there too. I
like the bench visible from the front.
Yeah, I think that front side is a lot more visible, and I know that you have problems before with side entrances, but I don't know that they were on narrow lots or narrow side yards. So this is kind of opened up so that although it is down the side, it's pretty open and inviting.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I was just suggesting bringing it even more to the front. But one last idea before I forget was just the increasing the size of the deck, the second floor deck, and moving it out over, cantilevering over the that cut. Well, you can't see it here, but the cutout area where the house steps back. just to bring another feature, a house feature out front, to balance the garage.
You're saying cantilever to the north?
Uh,
The north is...
Yes.
Yeah.
Just an idea.
Possibility. I mean, it might break up, actually. Would it help? Yeah, you could. Actually, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
It would come out a little bit more and step back at the garage.
I'm just trying to think of ways to move the garage back and/or move more house features to the front. You know, that's the gist. Again, I'm not do that. I wouldn't know how to do that well, but
Yeah, no, I think that's a good suggestion. What I'd like to discuss is continuing this item, so we can give the architect a chance to take what he's heard tonight and come back with some creative solutions that illustrate them.
I'd be open to that.
So we should be clear about what we're asking for, though, I think.
Well, I'd rather not give specific direction. I think our discussion provided a lot of ideas and concerns. And, in this case, I think we can leave it to their creativity.
Well, let me say this. Would anyone be willing to, or is up for approval tonight? Anyone willing to approve this tonight as is?
I would with two modifications, that the garage was lowered by 1 foot and that the upper floor was lowered by 2 feet, and that the driveway is narrowed so that it preserves 2 off-street parking spaces between this new driveway and the adjacent driveways. Currently, there's no off-street space to the north of the existing driveway, but there are 2 to the south. So this would, I'm sorry, I'm saying off-street, I mean on-street. So this would be a net 0 gain or loss of on-street parking. And I think the narrower driveway helps it as well.
I'm in favor of that as well.
I looked at that, and I didn't think there would be losing an on-street space, but I didn't look correctly.
But I think the narrowing of the driveway just is good in general and gives more landscaping back and less hardscape.
It allows to preserve that larger magnolia on the curb strip.
I'm sorry. I'm in agreement with lowering the garage or bringing everything down by 1 foot, kind of grounding it a little bit more. Maybe I just need more clarification from Commissioner Arkren about the second floor coming down additional foot. Are you?
Yeah, I didn't quite get that.
So are you
either.
saying?
Well, what that does is it reduces the amount of wall between the top of the garage door and the upper floor windows, balcony. So it helps to, and I think it lowers the entire building. And it's just, again, because of the way that it meets the street relative to the adjacent homes, I think that'll help it feel less.
I think I understand that, but so are you saying that the whole building goes down 2 feet? Is that what the recommendation is then, at the living room level? So this goes to 11.9, and then this can go down 1 foot.
The floor level of the garage would drop 1 foot.
Okay.
And then the upper floor level would drop 2 feet.
Okay.
And so the ceiling of the garage would be 1 foot less.
Only an 8-foot living?
They could choose to have an 8-foot living room or lower that floor into grade, those 2 feet. And then it would likely lead to more terracing out the backyard. Or I could be open to a scheme that steps the upper floor down so that you're at a 8 or 9 foot ceiling in the garage, which would require stepping down into that master bedroom.
So your biggest concern is, are there two? Your biggest concern is the open space between the top of the garage.
Then we have
and,
basically a 13-foot plate height on the first floor of
pretty high.
the front facade. That's really the focus.
And you also think that lowering the entire building would help from the street view?
The garage will be less prominent, and
Yeah.
again, it's related to the pattern on this street where most of the garages are tucked under a
See that?
living room.
Ann, would you pull up the elevation with the adjacent neighbors? It's funny because the mass of the garage, the facade of the garage is in scale with this and that.
The stucco portion is
Stucco
what you're
portion
saying.
is consistent.
There
And
we
so it's funny that the height, I could see the height coming down a foot, but coming down 2 feet, it might be out of scale with the project to the right. I can easily see coming down 2 feet. The problem, I think, is that the stucco facade above the garage, and they could even break that by bringing the windows down from the bedroom or articulating. So if they were to bring the whole building down a foot so that the garage is a little bit more embedded into the ground, or leave the garage where it is and it shrinks a foot.
Gary? Yes. Please.
What you're asking, and you're concerned about the overall plane height.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could just leave it at, we'll mitigate how to bring that down and reduce it so it doesn't look 2 feet or 1 feet. We'll work out what we need to do to bring that down and make it less tall and help in that process.
So you'd prefer some time to work out?
Yeah, I mean, if that's a big stumbling block, we'll work on making visually that look lower and maybe physically bring it down. The house really isn't that tall, truly. It's not that tall of a house.
It's 24, and the one we just approved was 28.
I mean,
But very different.
Yeah, they're very, very different.
I think what we're responding to is if you turn around and look at the height of that, where the stucco stops under the windows from the height all the way down to the bottom of it's consistent with the building to the left and the building to the right, but those two buildings have 2 windows or 2 openings in that same height, and in this case, there's only one. And we went back and forth on an orthodontist office that was going in on Ordway, and there was a lot of continued conversation about having a big flat facade and it just being too stark in a residential neighborhood. And this is nowhere near what that was, but I think elements of that conversation might be seeping in here. That it might just be, and I think the vine would help, and but I agree with.
I agree. It's really close.
It's close. Well, we could approve it, and then either leave it to staff to review, approve it with some additional conditions, asking for some changes. And then, or suggest the changes and ask it to come back on a consent calendar.
Well, I thought I heard the applicant asking for actually continuing so that.
No, we'd love to get approval with conditions if we could today. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody wants to proceed.
Yeah, makes
And
sense.
I'm just saying that I would, if you have a concern about that height, rather than say, drop the building 2 feet, let us address it in a way that gets you the reduced visual height, however we end up doing it, lowering windows, shrinking a foot or something, but rather than define how we do it, let us just respond to it if that's very important to this.
That whole stucco line could just come down a foot too. The trim transition from stucco to trim could.
And to me, that means continuing so that we can have another chance to look at what he came up with, but I'm open.
I'm open to hearing a motion, and we'll see what we can do, or if that motion is to continue, I'm willing to hear that.
If we were to continue, how fast do you think you could, but we don't have that many meetings left, do we?
We have the July 23rd meeting, but I know that Commissioner Arkin will not be present. Commissioner Moss is recused, so will the 3 of you be present?
Yes.
So that we'll have a quorum?
We will be here. So could you bring back, would July 23rd work?
Is there any way you could just give us conditions?
Okay, well, I hear that conditions
it would be.
I think we're close.
Again, I'm open to hearing a motion, so.
Okay, I don't think I could formulate such a motion, so I'm going to have to.
I can try if you
Okay.
like. Okay. So I move to approve planning application 14-020, design review, addition and remodel of 911 Carmel Avenue, with all conditions and approvals. I further move that we somehow address, that the architect somehow addresses bringing down the height of the garage facade, the volume. And that could be either with lowering windows or bringing the water table down or reducing the height of the garage, lowering the building. We will, so those are some examples of how to do that. And then would staff be willing to approve the final elevation?
As part of the building permit submittal, yes.
Okay.
All right. Please, come forward.
I don't want to make more work for everybody, but if we don't get a chance to review what's been changed, then it's likely we'll just go to appeal to the city council because we don't get to see the plan. I'm not going to get to see the plan. You've already approved it. The only recourse I have is to say I don't agree with what was said, what was presented thus far, because you've made some nice suggestions, but I don't know what the product is going to be without having a chance.
It's going to be very similar to what you're looking at, but it will somehow, the volume of the garage component will be to your benefit. It'll be smaller than what's there now.
I mean, I like both the pinching and the lowering by a foot. Those are significant alterations, but yeah, it just doesn't feel like we have a chance to review it. So how can we? The only recourse is to appeal if I don't get a chance to review.
Maybe we should accept. Maybe I'll accept an alternative motion to continue. Date certain.
I think the reason why we were trying to move forward is because we don't meet in August, and so there's only one more meeting before we adjourn for the fall.
Well, Frank, I've always been more comfortable with continuing, so I'll put forward an alternative or substitute motion to continue this application to the planning application. Where is it? 14020 for design review for an addition and remodel of 911 Carmel with the period to a date certain of July 23rd.
Okay. Before you sort of officially place that on the floor, do I need? Confused here. Stacy made a motion. I didn't ask for a second. Was there? I think I should.
Well, if there's no second, the motion.
I didn't even ask for one. And there wasn't a second, I don't think. Okay, so we're okay. Okay, so next motion is on the table then. Is there a second to that?
I'll second the motion to continue.
Okay, all right. All right, any further discussion? Well, I'll say I guess that's the prudent way to go since you do have concerned neighbors and you do have a possibility of an appeal that would add months or a couple of months of delay and cost the neighbor money to file the appeal. I think this is the best way to proceed. I'll make that comment. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So this item's been continued to the 23rd, and you've heard our discussion and have some guidance, and we hope to see you then. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is new business. El Cerrito Draft Specific Plan. Let's get Phil to. Is Phil still here?
Oh, he should be. I'm going to move over.
Yeah, I think that would be best. Sit in the middle.
This thing.
We printed it out. 388 pages.
manage it on the screen. Sit in my reading chair. Okay. Are we ready? Okay.
Nick excused himself for just a moment.
Oh, okay.
He ran out.
Oh, yeah.
Could we maybe ask folks to take their conversation outside?
Yeah, probably. Okay. I think they're breaking up, so. Nick will probably catch up with us. Nick will probably catch up with us. Let's start the staff report. I think that'd be the right thing to do.
Great.
Nick will be back in a minute, I'm sure. Here he is.
I'd like to begin by giving you a quick overview of the El Cerrito Draft San Pablo Avenue Specific Plan, and then introduce to you an intern that's working with us on a variety of things, including this project, and turn it over to her for a little bit more detail. First of all, the item that's before you is the draft specific plan for the stretch of San Pablo Avenue in El Cerrito. It is a specific plan which, to refresh your memory, is kind of a hybrid planning document that's recognized in state law. Part of it is the big picture policy, kind of general plan level things. And the other part of it is very specific, detailed zoning standards. And generally, this is a tool that's used in specific geographic areas of a community, like borders such as San Pablo Avenue. Once a specific plan is approved, it has the same force of law that a zoning ordinance plan amendment would have. Whatever is approved by the city of El Cerrito would become the standards that they must apply. Part of what's interesting about this analysis that Rania will go through in a moment is that they're using a form-based planning code, which is a little bit different than what we have, which is a more traditional code. Our code kind of evolves over the decades of being something that's trying to separate uses and create setbacks from different types of uses or different types of buildings. Form-based code is much more about what you want to visualize the neighborhood to be, the scale and massing, builds the zoning standards from that visualization of the future rather than separating. I think it's kind of, in many respects, a cutting edge in land use planning. Rania is a graduate student at the University of San Francisco in urban studies. She has been working with us for a few months now on a variety of things. She contributed to the Measure D working group meetings. She also has helped us with some of our affordable housing initiatives, and be continuing to do that as we're working on our next housing element. She also has a bachelor's degree in planning from Cairo University. And she and her husband and 2 daughters live in University Village. Her husband also is in the planning field, getting a PhD at Cal in planning. So it's delightful to have Rania here to help us. And this is her first presentation to a planning commission. So I know she's a little nervous, and you'll bear with her. I'm sure she would appreciate that, but she's also very smart, so I'm sure she'll do a good job.
Scary, it's the audience you have to worry about.
I told her there wouldn't be a major crowd, and I was right about one thing at least.
Thank you, Jeff, for the great introduction. I hope I'm up to it. So, as he introduced me, I'm studying urban affairs. So I have a little bit of academic perspective, but I'm going through the review of the specific plan for Cerrito, and the 2 points that I would like to discuss is about the maps, the base map they used in the study, and how the whole study interface with Albany and impacts it as along our shared borders.
Yeah.
So the maps mainly, like 2 points, the next slide will show that they do not go beyond the city limit, and they are consistently cropped by the city limit, which I will show you later. And then how it impacts with Albany, our interface with Albany is indirectly and directly through Central Avenue and Pierce Street. And the gateways and bus stops and Greenway they are proposing is directly impacting Albany. So this is the general street type plan they are proposing. And they are dividing the segment of San Pablo on Cerrito into three segments: downtown, midtown, and uptown. Of course, the downtown area is the more area that impacts Albany. And here, so basically, the BART service area is cropped on the right-hand side. So it doesn't show where the Cerrito BART station service area ends in Albany, which is a main BART station for many of the residents in Albany. So I think it's worth visualizing on the maps as it's an area of everyday trips for both residents. And the second point, that it's cropped also by exactly the city limit, which does not acknowledge the continuity of the plan along the Albany and Cerrito, which is also an everyday activity happens between the two cities. And this is a downtown area, which the streetscape design for the downtown area, they have a lot of details, but I think the most important is the gateway they are proposing from Albany to Cerrito, which is something we are in favor of, because it acknowledges, it provides a good transition between the two contexts and for both communities. So our main concern for the gateway is just the noise and traffic delays that could result from the construction. And the other details would need mitigation measures, but it's very promising plan, as you have seen maybe. This is the proposed prototype. They don't have a specific site design. They have prototypes. So this is one of the intersection prototypes proposed, and mainly they are proposing for the bus stops to have bulb outs and landscape bulb outs, which would increase the efficiency of ridership, and bicycle churros in the outside lanes. They are proposing to move the bus stops to the far side of the intersection, and have bus stops platform in the parking lanes, and elevated bike lanes after like this showed the elevated bike lanes beyond the bus stops and the prototype sidewalks. They have offered to have amenity zones and pedestrian zones and activity zones in all sidewalks. The minimum they are offering is 8 feet to maximum 14 feet for all sidewalks. So some areas can accommodate this, and some areas would need to see how they would accommodate this width for activities. And the greenway they are proposing, which is in the zoom-in map, they say that's just an illustration of the creeks. It's not an accurate illustration, but still we are in favor of if open spaces and greenways connect to at least a Cerrito Creek and the Creekside Park, so to ensure the continuity and connectivity of the open spaces between the two cities. The last thing we are concerned is the indirect impact from the proposal along San Pablo, that with the proposed activities and the new developments they are proposing, and with the constantly severe traffic on Central Avenue, that vehicles will use mainly Pierce Street, and this will impact the residents on Pierce and Buchanan to the exit for the freeway. And this also is our concern. Pierce Street is in the Albany Transportation Active Plan is a shared use path, but still it's a concern if the VMT will increase along this street, and we would like to communicate with them to consider how they would have mitigation plans or alternatives for this if it happens. And that's it for now. Thank you. Questions?
Yeah, one of what I thought was a deficiency in the whole thing that I looked at. They extend their study area down Central Avenue almost to Pierce Street, to the Dolan lumber site. I think it goes, the old Dolan. But neither in the plan nor in their EIRs, I don't think, I haven't read all of it, but looked at it, do they include any of the intersections on Central? They don't have the intersection with Carlson,
Yes,
the signalized
and Fairmont.
intersection, and they don't have the signalized intersection with Pierce.
Yes.
And that intersection, as we know, is a mess. I mean, that's really a difficult intersection. And if they're going to do anything, it would seem to me that that's a huge constraint, and that they should almost start looking at, well, what's Caltrans going to do? What's the future of Central? And what can be done to make Central work better? And I don't know if much if anything has been done. I think it's a conundrum for Caltrans. But things can be done. I mean, Berkeley's looking at Gilman and aggressively and dramatically. So
By Caltrans, you mean the interchange at I-80?
I-80 and Pierce and Jacuzzi, that it's just like, it's kind of similar to Gilman's situation. And
It's better than Gilman.
and it's a hard one. Yeah.
Caltrans has done studies of ways to improve that. So
have?
I know I participated as a consultant's spouse. Yeah. This was 7 years ago, but Caltrans actually hired Fair and Pierce to do a study. And I tagged along with my husband driving the car while he did the analysis. And we drove the corridor at the peak times on the weekends, actually, to do, vehicle flow and that sort of thing. And so a report was prepared that went to them. My understanding is that they are, they are considering doing improvements. They know it's in pretty poor condition, and that particularly in the weekends, traffic is especially bad.
Right. And my comment to El Cerrito is, why doesn't your plan reflect that in some way, or in the EIR? At least analyze it. But I was really surprised that none of those, they have all the signalized intersections on San Pablo, but then they extend their downtown study area all the way down to, almost down to I-80, but they don't include those streets. That looked to me like a glaring oversight, and I know it's tough, but I think that's important. And then another comment I'll make is on the gateway stuff too. I thought they have some good policies. They really seem serious about using Cerrito Creek as kind of a greened sort of gateway. And I think that we have policy like that in our existing general plan. I think we're going to have policy along the same line in our future general plan. And we haven't gotten to the transportation element yet, but land use, we have anyway. Yes, if we were going to comment to them, we should say something like, hey, we want to cooperate with this, don't you think? What are the steps? Do we want to committee, plan it together? Do we have a time frame? We want to have a MOU saying that they won't go ahead without us being on board, or we won't go ahead without coordinating with them. There are probably some procedural steps that could be laid out as part of the specific plan to coordinate that. I'd love to see it. That we could, the two cities together, could maybe pool some funds if we have any funds. Of course, they're going to think that they're going to be way ahead of us, and they'll have all these developer funds.
What is MOU?
Memorandum of Understanding. Just kind of an informal but agreement, so something saying, well, we've talked about this and we're of like minds, and specs. I think that'd be a great thing to do.
Yeah.
They also have a bicycle and pedestrian connections, and there's that trail along Cerrito Creek that runs along the edge of the plaza, pedestrian trail. It runs down there. They show that on their map. It runs to San Pablo. They show it going down the sidewalk to San Pablo. It crosses over there by the Bauman Taylor shop, music store. There by Pete's. It crosses San Pablo. And then I think it kind of runs down parallel to the creek. But we have a problem at the end of that, and I would love to see that problem solved. That's is it 545 or 5 on the development at the base of Albany Hill. I did this when I worked with zoning with Ann Cheney, issues there. And they have some property rights there, and they have some agreements with their permits where they were supposed to provide access for a future trail along the creek, and there are disputes about how big it is and when it is and how they can, and they've kind of closed it off. Or they're like holding the city hostage for something else they want. Complicated negotiations and ended up going nowhere. But that's like a key link. If we could break that loose, we could have a trail running along Cerrito Creek without too much effort that would go all the way down to Pierce. Maybe bikeable, certainly walkable.
Yeah, and if they,
I would love to see that.
if it appears their plan, and first of all, let me thank you for a very good presentation. And I think you have identified the right impacts that we need to be communicating back to them on. Their plan appears to indicate recreating an urban grid in El Cerrito Plaza, and this has been done to a lot of suburban shopping malls, and I think it's the right approach that they're taking. But if that really is envisioned as a dense, vibrant downtown, having a easy pedestrian connection from the Pierce Street condominium projects that are in Albany as well as in El Cerrito is going to be an important connection, an important link. Certainly the gateway, as presented in the plan, I think is lovely. We get the benefit of it, and they're able to do what they can do because they own their stretch of San Pablo Avenue, where ours is still owned by Caltrans. I think we should, push the limits of what we can do, or make a proposal to take control of it ourselves, so we can in turn, develop it to this degree. The form-based code that they've presented is, there's some fairly substantial projects here.
It is.
4 stories at San Pablo Avenue, and then stepping up another 2 with a daylight setback to a total of 6 stories. And, I didn't look too closely, but there may even be, nodes with higher densities or higher heights. And at some point, we need to look at, or the state's going to start to look at us and say, well, you've got El Cerrito to the north building to that level of density with mixed-use multifamily projects. You've got Berkeley to the south doing the same thing. You really need to do this as well, And it may be that the tool of, form-based codes in the form of a specific plan is a tool that would be appropriate. Given the concerns that the community has about, what are these things what shape are they going to take, what impact are they going to have, and it's in creating a form-based code that you can model what is possible.
I think it's a huge, big step for them. I'll be interested in watching the process of it being, whether it really does get approved in this form or anything close to this form. That'll be interesting. I'm working on a project right now in Moraga that their specific plan for their sort of downtown area took them 7 years to do.
Just the plan.
just the plan. And they finished it in 2010. Now they're working on their first multi-family development. It's a struggle for them to get it, to do it.
To fit within the plan.
It's struggling.
Interesting. One more thing I wanted to mention, then I'll pass it on, is, you know, the restoration of the grid connects with the Albany grid.
It does.
And on the one hand, I like that. I think that's an appropriate thing. And on the other, there's, of course, you know, the potential for increased
They close the grid.
impacts
Yeah.
of that. So, you know,
If I read the
how they
plan
may.
correctly, David, if I read it correctly, they're talking about allowing infill development on the plaza in that street grid.
Yeah.
I think that, so that would mean you'd have to say, well, okay, well, you keep the plaza parking and you build above it. That's the way I read it. That's what I think is an option that's available. And they now have one project for the 128 units approved in the plaza. But the way I read that is that, you know, they might be able to have mixed-use housing with commercial parking below at the place where the farmer's market is. Something like that. That's the way I look at it. Possible.
Yeah, I wonder if there ought to be a suggestion of, I mean, it's odd to have a downtown, you know, and I credit them for locating it at the first BART station that, you know, you reach when you approach El Cerrito, but to have it right on, you know, the edge of Albany and right on Cerrito Creek, maybe some discussion of a transition from the creek to that higher density needs to be proposed. And it could be residential, you know, but just not have an immediate commercial use.
Too, because their city hall is in Midtown.
Yeah.
And their civic center is, you know, and the library and all that is in the Midtown area.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that our housing element, we have identified a lot of sites near El Cerrito Creek for higher density. So it fits right into the El Cerrito plan.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it should be low density. I'm just saying maybe more residential in nature to transition to our residential district.
I
think
think that our heights and our densities aren't approaching.
And I think that their shadow requirements and their step back requirements to residential will help our residential in that area.
Good point.
So that should be thought, that it's not just in El Cerrito that those restrictions apply, that we need to apply them also to Albany.
Good point.
Shadows cross the city lines.
Well, I think it's a very exciting plan to see what they're proposing. I think it's a very forward-looking, progressive plan, and no surprise, I look to a lot of the transportation things that they're proposing, such as the bike lanes behind the bus stops and protected bike lanes at intersections so that the bicycles stop forward of the cars and can proceed ahead of the cars to prevent conflicts between cars turning and the bicycles. But yeah, I think that it's very good news for Albany, as was stated, that we will be sandwiched between something progressive like this and stuff that's happening in Berkeley, and maybe some people have to wake up to the fact that Albany needs to move forward as well in some areas. So thank you for your presentation.
I'll make one other comment here, or maybe. One of the incentives about specific plans that I don't think have really caught on very much, but they will someday, I think, and that is there is a statutory exemption in CEQA. If you build a project that is consistent with an approved and adopted specific plan, CEQA does not apply, period. Study, no CEQA review, it just is a statutory exemption. So your CEQA review is one paragraph.
Well, it's covered by the
EIR,
secret
well,
review, the EIR.
there has to be an
for the
EIR
specific
on this,
plan.
there has to be an EIR on the specific plan.
Actually, that's not to counter that, but it is actually not that way, because I've just run into one where they identified in a specific plan, they said they failed to identify impacts from this development, unanticipated impacts, and then put me through an EIR.
Yeah.
So
And
it's not
it's
100%
very hard to
exempted.
use.
They failed, you failed to anticipate unanticipated impacts?
Failed to unanticipated consequences of having this development, even though it was identified in the general plan and the specific plan. They failed to identify this, and so then they kicked me into an EIR.
Speaking of the EIR, where has it been voted on yet by the council, El Cerrito City
When
Council?
are comments due on the EIR?
The comments are due July 20-something.
Oh, I thought they'd already incorporated the comments from what I saw.
No.
They're actually having a public workshop tonight, and then it's going to their Planning and Zoning Commission next Wednesday.
Planning and zoning for comments on the EIR, comments on the specific plan.
So we'll assemble your feedback this evening as well as some of Ranya's work and send them a letter to communicate some of the issues that you've raised.
Well, I'm going to follow it somewhat close myself, because it turns out that property in the specific plan area on Central, on Belmont in the boundary just covers my property.
I'm confused. There are already comments in this draft EIR that we have in front of us.
Those were comments on the notice of preparation.
Oh, okay.
It's at the very beginning.
Oh, okay.
And incidentally, I also sent an email to them at that stage that didn't get in there, which isn't a big deal.
Yeah,
but pointing out that the connectivity was important. Consistency. The other thing that you haven't mentioned that we want to make sure that happens is that there's some consistent assumptions between what they're doing in their general plan and what we're doing in our general plan, or their specific plan, our general plan EIR, so that we don't have two documents that are kind of out there roughly at the same time that have saying different things about traffic along San Pablo Avenue.
And we should probably also see if our complete streets plan meshes with theirs, or what the interface is at the city limit line anyway. That maybe someone will need to make a transition there. I don't know. Maybe they'll be fine.
That's a good comment. Yeah.
We need to check on that, because we're doing that.
Well, wasn't, Jeff probably knows the details more than this, but there was a proposal to do a grant, combined Albany and El Cerrito, having something to do with complete streets.
Yeah, well, we ended up not pursuing that. We were kind of advised that would probably not be a competitive application. At one point, we talked about jointly with the city of El Cerrito combining to do one grant application to do a major comprehensive complete street effort for the entire corridor. And that the particular grant, the process of doing something that would be huge. And complicated by having two municipalities, and we're looking for more shovel-ready projects that could be implemented more quickly. So we did apply under that grant program for pedestrian improvements, pedestrian crossings on our part of San Pablo Avenue, which we feel like we can do pretty quickly. Doesn't raise all the issues that sometimes comes up with parking and bike lanes and things like that. We know we got to work on those, but for the shovel-ready, improving the pedestrian crossings seemed like kind of a no-brainer and a really important safety thing to do soon.
Yeah.
When I read the introduction, I noticed four major goals or specific plan. I noticed that at least two of those were very development oriented, very developer, wanted to invite investment. Quite different than anything we've ever done in our general plan. David's talked about it before, about how our zoning sometimes discourages new investment, makes it hard, enough problems with small lots and things like that. But the general point of view of this seemed to be very, very different than anything we have in our upcoming general about development anyway on Solano or San Pablo in our commercial. They want to, the idea of the form-based code is you want to make it have a lot of flexibility for developers to come in and improve develop it in ways that work for them, a lot of incentives for the density bonuses and around the transit stations. Affirmative, very affirmative, and different than our point of view, I thought.
Well, when they, actually you get into using their code and the shadow studies and the impacts from the shadows, it's going to be very restrictive.
It could be. I noticed those too.
December 21st.
Are they? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
shadows can be
Very, very long, yeah.
Very long, yeah.
Okay, any other comments or thoughts? Thank you. Great. What else do we have? Announcements, communications, discussion of any items?
I'll just announce that at the city council meeting this week, Alan Maris stated that we have an excellent planning and zoning commission.
He did say that. Yeah, he did say that, yeah. So, okay. All right, then the next meeting is July 23rd. And David will be on vacation, I hope, or some good place.
I'll be returning from my sister's wedding in Wisconsin.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. I'll be here. I'll leave the next day, but I'll be here, 23rd.
So do let us know if you're not going to make, if anyone else won't make it, because we'll probably have a mad rush of applications. Right? No?
I have everything set for the next agenda. So we have a continuance of 941 Jackson, 911 Carmel, 516 Evelyn, and actually Stacy's recused. It's the Tevlin, 1086 Tevlin project.
Okay.
Plus Barry.
Plus housing element, yeah.
And,
Plus what?
Barry will be here for the housing element.
Oh, yeah. Okay, good. Good. All right. Great. Thank you. And we're adjourned.